Chapter 429. There were a lot of messy memories in Zhang Chufan's mind. With Chu Xiu's mental strength, those messy memories had been completely destroyed by Chu Xiu, leaving behind only memories of the Demon Heart Hall's inheritance. The soul-searching secret technique was relatively simple and crude. While crushing the other party with mental strength, one could theoretically find out all sorts of things. However, if one wanted to dig out a cultivation technique from the other party's mind without missing a single word, the level of mental strength required was terrifying. At the very least, Chu Xiu could not do it now. Even martial Dao masters who specialized in mental strength would not be able to do it. Chu Xiu only knew from Zhang Chufan's mind how he obtained the inheritance and the location of the cultivation technique. Speaking of which, Zhang Chufan was truly a person blessed by providence. The method he used to obtain this inheritance was truly mysterious. In the original plot, the person who obtained the inheritance of the Demon Heart Hall was very cautious. He did not reveal where he obtained the inheritance until his death. Now, Chu Xiu knew that the inheritance was actually in the sea. No wonder no one had noticed it for so long. In the past, the Demon Heart Hall's Hall Master, Nangong Wuming, was chased by the righteous and forced to jump into the sea with serious injuries. Therefore, Nangong Wuming opened up a cave under the sea and sealed it with a formation. While isolating the seawater, it could also isolate the aura of the place. He also left a mark of the Kunlun Devil cult on the outside, hoping that someone from the Kunlun Devil cult would find this place in the future. However, a few hundred years later, the Kunlun Devil cult had been destroyed. Even the mark he left behind had been erased. In the past, Zhang Chufan was a hanger-on of the Prince of Annal's residence. After the residence was destroyed, he fled in panic, afraid of being discovered by the imperial court. In the end, Zhang Chufan accidentally provoked some murderous bandits on his way to escape. During a fierce battle with them, he accidentally fell into the sea on the cliff and happened to find Nangong Wuming's inheritance. Not only did Nangong Wuming leave behind all his cultivation techniques, but he also left behind some secret treasures and elixirs that he used to carry around with him. However, these consumables had already been used up by Zhang Chufan, and not a single one was left. Some of the elixirs produced by the Kunlun Devil cult still needed to be refined in a special way. In the end, Zhang Chufan swallowed them without thinking. Although his own strength had skyrocketed to the three-flower realm, it was still a great waste. Chu Xiu searched Zhang Chufan's arms and took out a cultivation jade scroll. It contained all the inheritance of Nangong Wuming's cultivation techniques in the past. In fact, the cultivation transmission jade slip was mainly used to preserve the cultivation technique and pass it down. If he did not intend to pass the cultivation technique down, the safest method would be to memorize it in his mind and then destroy the cultivation transmission jade slip. That was the safest method. There were too many people around, so Chu Xiu could only forcibly memorize it in his mind. He also roughly checked the contents of the jade slip. Chu Xiu could not help but shake his head. Nangong Wuming used to be the hall master of the Demon Heart Hall. He had a high status in the Kunlun Devil cult. Nangong Wuming used to be the hall master of the Demon Heart Hall. His status in the Kunlun Devil cult was definitely not low. When Chu Xiu chatted with Mr. Lu before, he learned about the structure of the Kunlun Devil cult. In the Kunlun Devil cult, apart from Dugu Weiwei, the 4 demon lords were the leaders. Each demon lord had extremely powerful subordinates. Apart from the 4 demon lords, the Kunlun Devil cult also had dozens of demon envoys. These demon envoys were titled. They might have subordinates, or they might be alone. However, as long as they left the Kunlun Devil cult, they represented the interests and reputation of the entire Kunlun Devil cult. They were considered the backbone of the Kunlun Devil cult. For example, Situli of the Phaseless Demon sect. His branch had always been a Yin demon envoy of the Kunlun Devil cult. Although the Phaseless Demon sect was not considered a direct descendant of the Kunlun Devil cult, they were extremely loyal to the Kunlun Devil cult. The title of Demon Envoy was considered a commendation from the Kunlun devil cult to the phaseless demon sect. Compared to demon envoys, the hall masters of the Kunlun devil cult were much more complicated. At the peak of the Kunlun devil cult, there were dozens of halls under them. Each hall had a different role. Some were in charge of fighting, some were in charge of alchemy, and some were in charge of other miscellaneous things. Therefore, in theory, the position of the hall masters was the same as that of the demon envoys. However, their combat power was different. Some were on par with the demon envoys, but some were not. However, Nangong Wuming's Demon Heart Hall was one of the halls of the Kunlun devil cult that was known for its combat power. Moreover, its techniques were inclined toward the spiritual type. It combined the three branches of Taoism, Buddhism, and demon into one, creating the great art of inner demons, and the 9 forms of soul assimilation, a strange technique that combined spiritual power and demonic techniques. In Chu Xiu's opinion, it was not inferior to the Xiahou clan's art of imperial spirit. However, Zhang Chufan was a little disappointing. Nangong Wuming's main cultivation techniques were these two, but he felt that they were too obscure and hard to understand. Therefore, he didn't bother to learn them. Instead, he only learned a few of the Kunlun demon sect's internal techniques and martial techniques. Although these internal techniques and martial techniques were not weak, they were clearly incomparable to Nangong Wuming's secret techniques. Just as Chu Xiu was thinking about the technique, Tang Ye quietly walked up to Chu Xiu's side. He pouted at the door and said in a low voice, "Sir, people from the other forces of the Antai prefecture are here." Chu Xiu nodded and suddenly reached his hand out, directly crushing that skill-imparting jade slip. Zhang Chufan was dead, and now the technique was in his hands. From now on, he, Chu Xiu, was the successor of the Demon Heart Hall, the direct descendant of the Kunlun devil cult. He could pass off the fake as the real one. No, to be more precise, Chu Xiu was the real one. Only when there was something fake would there be something real. Now that the fake was gone, Chu Xiu naturally became the real one. As soon as he walked out of the door, there were a lot of martial artists gathered outside. There were hundreds of them, and the ones leading them were not weak. There were quite a few martial artists at the 5 Qis Origin Realm and the 3 Flower Realm. They were all local martial arts forces of the Antai prefecture, and they had just been summoned by the Yang family. However, they didn't expect the Yang clan to be annihilated so quickly. How long has it been since the Yang clan was annihilated? The martial artists who escaped from the Yang family had already told them about Chu Xiu's identity and what had happened. This left them at a loss as to what to do. Logically speaking, Chu Xiu was an outsider. No matter how many reasons he had, he dared to be so arrogant in the Antai prefecture. They should have been united against the outsiders. However, the problem was that the Yang family had already been destroyed. The speed at which the Yang family was destroyed was faster than they could reach. If they were to unite against the outsiders now, they would be courting death. However, if they did not say a word, wouldn't they look a little too cowardly? Before they could say anything, however, Chu Xiu had already walked out with his people. He said calmly, "Zhang Chufan is known as the reincarnation of the Kunlun devil cult. In order to prevent the remnants of the cult from wreaking havoc in the martial world, I have already killed him." As a martial arts family, the Yang family openly sheltered the remnants of the cult and conspired against the law. I have also killed them. After saying that, Chu Xiu walked out in front of everyone, as if what he had said just now was just a routine notice to them. In reality, that was indeed the case. Chu Xiu was informing them. It did not matter if they believed his reason or not. He had already killed them, so do as you see fit. In the face of Chu Xiu's arrogant attitude, the martial artists of the Antai prefecture did not dare to say a word. Some even stepped aside. Just then, Chu Xiu suddenly stopped in his tracks. With a wave of one hand, the Gangqi saber light burst out and directly beheaded 2 Yang family survivors hiding in the crowd. These two were the martial artists of the Yang family who had just gone to inform the Yang family. They thought they had already escaped death, but they did not expect that they had only stepped into the gates of hell a little late. The sudden saber strike caught everyone off guard, and even splashed the surrounding people with blood. This made them immediately glare at Chu Xiu. Some of them wanted to say something, but they were held back by some of the more experienced and prudent martial artists next to them. They had already restrained themselves before. If they were to fall out with Chu Xiu now, it would be really unwise. Watching Chu Xiu and his people leave, someone said indignantly, "This Chu Xiu is really arrogant. This is our Eastern Qi's anti-prefecture, not his Guangzhong torture room. Does he not even have someone to uphold justice?" Someone shook his head and said, "Justice? Chu Xiu came to kill the remnants of the demonic path. What justice does he want? On the contrary, he is the righteous one. I say, everyone, don't think too much about this mess. The Yang family has been destroyed, but the anti-prefecture is still the anti-prefecture. The heavens will not change. Just do what you have to do. I heard that the Yang family is related to the omniscient sect. If you want to worry about this matter, it should be the omniscient sect. For the time being, we will pretend that we are deaf and blind and didn't see anything." Everyone present nodded their heads. Although they respected the Yang clan and would listen to most of the Yang clan's orders, that was only when the Yang clan was still alive. Now that the Yang clan had been destroyed, they would not be in any danger even if they pretended to be deaf and mute, even though it would seem a little cowardly. What they did not know was that the people from the omniscient sect they had just been discussing were already outside the anti-prefecture, and they were all important people. Outside the gates of the anti-prefecture, Wuxia Xianxia of the omniscient sect carried his long spear, blood serpent, on his back. He was dressed in a loose black robe with his chest open, revealing his strong chest muscles and the blood serpent tattoo. Coupled with his masculine and handsome appearance, he really did have a strange, evil charm to him. Several omniscient sect martial artists followed behind him, but the most eye-catching one was the woman riding a black panther beside him. Her entire body was shrouded in black muslin, and even her face was covered with a black veil. But through the thin black muslin, one could vaguely see her exquisite and alluring figure. Anyone would be attracted to the woman at first glance and ignore the elegant and mysterious black panther mount beneath her. This woman was the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult who had fought on floating Jade Mountain. Chapter 430. In front of the gate of anti-prefecture, Wuxia Xianxia flicked his hair and said to the saintess of moon-worshipping cult, "I say, saintess, is that guy who claims to be the successor of the Demon Heart Hall worth our attention? In my opinion, he's just a clown trying to please the crowd. Although that Lin Yi guy from the Inma clan is a bit annoying, his strength is there for all to see. There aren't many people of the same level who can withstand my spear. I believe that he's the successor of the Kunlun devil cult, but why do I feel that this Zhang Chu fan is a fake?" The saintess spoke softly. Her voice was as clear and moving as a mountain spring, but there was a hint of contempt in her words. "What do you know? In the past, your omniscient sect was nothing in front of the Kunlun devil cult. To put it bluntly, when the Kunlun devil cult was at its strongest, even if your omniscient sect wanted to be the dog of the Kunlun devil cult, you weren't qualified. That's why the people of the Phaseless Demon sect have the title of Shadow Demon Envoy, while your omniscient sect has nothing. In the past, our ancestors had dealings with the Demon Heart Hall, so we know some details about their techniques. Although this Zhang Chu fan didn't use Nangong Wuming's signature martial arts, the inner demon rotation technique and the 9 forms of soul catcher, the techniques he used are some of the secret techniques of the Demon Heart Hall. Therefore, this Zhang Chu fan might really be related to the Demon Heart Hall. Although there's only a certain chance, if we can learn the inheritance of the Demon Heart Hall from him, it's definitely worth it. In the past, Chu Xiu had only revealed his identity as the legitimate successor of the Kunlun devil cult during the Demon Alliance meeting, but he didn't say that he was from the Demon Heart Hall. If the moon-worshipping cult knew this, they would probably be more suspicious of Chu Xiu's identity, just like Mei Qinglian. Of course, the most miserable person in this matter was actually Zhang Chufan. He thought that the extreme evil sect was his savior, and even Yang Kaitai thought that the extreme evil sect wanted to raise Zhang Chufan. Who would have thought that they had guessed wrong? From the very beginning, the extreme evil sect had never considered raising Zhang Chufan. The omniscient sect's strength wasn't all that strong. Raising Yi Tianxia was already their limit. How could they have the time to raise Zhang Chufan? The omniscient sect had contacted Zhang Chufan purely because of the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden's idea. After the great battle between the righteous and demonic paths on floating Jade Mountain, the Yinma clan chose to keep a low profile. On the contrary, the moon-worshipping cult was extremely high profile, as if they were the #1 sect of the demonic path. Since then, the Five Poison sect, which was previously attached to the moon-worshipping sect, and the omniscient sect, which wasn't that strong, had already taken the attitude of following the moon-worshipping sect's lead. Only powerful demonic sects like the Sixth Demon sect could still maintain their independence. As a high-ranking member of the moon-worshipping sect, the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden had also personally brought some people to the northern Yen to recruit a group of disciples in the northern Yen land. Naturally, the omniscient sect had to receive them respectfully. After the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden accidentally learned about Zhang Chufan's matter, she asked the omniscient sect to come forward and recruit Zhang Chufan in the name of the omniscient sect. In reality, it was only because of the Demon Heart Hall's cultivation method that he possessed. Hearing that the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden looked down on the omniscient sect, Yi Tianxia's eyes showed a hint of anger, but he quickly concealed it. He just laughed and said, "With the current power of the moon-worshipping sect, do you still lack cultivation methods?" The moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden said lightly, "Of course, the more cultivation methods, the better. Even if you can't learn them all, it's also good to master them. Didn't the sect leader's Heaven-Mending Heart Sutra and the East Emperor Tai's Burning Sky Mirror come from this?" Yi Tianxia suddenly approached the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden and said in a teasing tone, "Then I wonder if the holy maiden is interested in my Blood Flood Dragon Heart Sutra? You should know that I'm the only person in the world who can cultivate the cultivation method of a ferocious beast. If the holy maiden is interested, whether it's day or night, I'll be willing to teach it to you." As he said this, Yi Tianxia also showed a self-righteous and evil smile to the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden, but in the next moment, his smile froze on his face. A whip completely condensed from demonic flames lashed at his head. The demonic flames were so powerful that they seemed to be able to devour any power. It was 80% similar to the East Emperor Tai's Burning Sky Mirror, but its power and artistic conception were not as strong as the East Emperor Tai's. Horrified, Yi Tianxia hurriedly tried to dodge, but at this time, 2 goo insects that looked like ice crystals bit on his legs. Not only did they freeze his body and meridians, but they also almost froze his soul forcibly. Pa! A loud and crisp sound was heard. Even with Yi Tianxia's physical strength comparable to that of a ferocious beast, he was directly hit by the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden's whip, leaving a black burn mark on his face. The moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden sneered, "Yi Tianxia, put away your disgusting thoughts. How dare you provoke me with your virtue? Do you really think I'm one of those love-struck female disciples in your evil extreme sect? Don't you know who you are? How dare you speak so rudely to me? Do you believe that even if I cripple you now, the sect master of your evil extreme sect wouldn't dare to say anything? Remember, behave yourself. Don't think that just because you have some achievements that you don't know anything. If you really want me, if you kill Zhang Chengzhen or Zhong Xian now, I can give you that chance." Covering his face, Yi Tianxia looked at the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden with a strong murderous intent in his eyes. Even his eyes turned into the golden pupils of a snake. Those who were familiar with Yi Tianxia knew that once he showed such a change, it meant that Yi Tianxia was angry, and he was extremely angry. The rest of the evil extreme sect's warriors beside Yi Tianxia quickly helped him up. At the same time, they frantically transmitted a message to Xianxia, telling him to consider the big picture and not to cause any more trouble. After being whipped, Xianxia looked at the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden with hatred in his eyes, but he didn't dare to express it too much. In the evil extreme sect, Xianxia was indeed very outstanding. He was masculine and handsome, and coupled with his blood flood dragon tattoo, he gave off a demonic charm. Therefore, in the evil extreme sect, there were many women who took the initiative to throw themselves at him. As for those who didn't, Xianxia only needed to use a few tricks and they would take the initiative to lie in his bed. Moreover, he didn't know if it was because of the nature of dragons, but after refining the Blood Flood Dragon's inner core and cultivating the Blood Flood Dragon's Heart Sutra, Xianxia's desire in that aspect became very strong. Therefore, whether it was the evil extreme sect's disciples or other female disciples who took the initiative to throw themselves at him, Xianxia could be said to not reject any of them. However, those women were just ordinary women. It wasn't until now that he was facing the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden that Xianxia realized what kind of person he was looking for. Moreover, Xianxia was quite confident. In his opinion, how many young men of the devil lineage were qualified to compete with him? Lin Yi had some strength, but he was a member of the Yinma clan. However, the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden didn't give Xianxia any face at all. Her attitude was simply extremely bad. In fact, the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden indeed had the qualifications to look down on Xianxia. In the eyes of other devil martial artists, Xianxia's identity was already very noble, but the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden was even more unattainable. Although the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden had yet to fully mature, she was destined to be one of the top 4 existences in the moon-worshipping sect in the future. Even if Xianxia had potential, his identity was still not comparable to the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden. Even the sect master of the evil extreme sect, who was a martial arts grandmaster, had to be respectful when facing the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden. He didn't dare to act presumptuously. Therefore, when Xianxia was taught a lesson by the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden, he was still rational and didn't flare up on the spot even though he was angry. At this moment, Chu Xiu happened to walk out of the Antai prefecture with his men and met Xianxia and the others. Both sides were stunned for a moment. Xianxia was stunned because he didn't expect Chu Xiu to come here, but Chu Xiu was not stunned because of the arrival of the evil extreme sect's martial artists, but because the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden was also here. In the past, during the righteous and demonic battles on Mount Floating Jade, the moon-worshipping sect's holy maiden was very outstanding. She was protected by several martial arts grandmasters, and she used her Gu techniques to kill countless righteous martial artists. Xianxia frowned. Chu Xiu, you're from the Guanzhong torture room. What are you doing here? Xianxia had not dealt with Chu Xiu before. To be precise, he had not dealt with the identity of Chu Xiu, but he knew of Chu Xiu. In the past, the evil extreme sect recruited Tong Kaitai, a rising star of the Longhu list, so that Xianxia could support the evil extreme sect while he was in seclusion. In the end, not long after, Tong Kaitai died at the hands of Chu Xiu. However, at that time, the evil extreme sect needed to keep a low profile, so the matter was forgotten. He didn't expect to run into Chu Xiu here again. Chu Xiu said faintly, "What a joke. Do I need to report to you, a member of the demonic Dao, when I come here?" Xianxia frowned. He suddenly saw that some of the warriors under Chu Xiu were stained with blood, and the murderous intent that had yet to completely dissipate from their bodies. Xianxia's expression couldn't help but change. He growled in a low voice, "What did you do to Zhang Chufan?" In the whole of Luohan County, apart from Zhang Chufan, there had been no other major movements. Chu Xiu appearing here, and looking as if he had just killed someone, other than Zhang Chufan, Xianxia couldn't think of anyone else. "What's wrong?" Chu Xiu laughed coldly and said, "What else can I do to a guy who claims to be a remnant of the Kunlun devil cult? Of course, I'll kill him on the spot." Xianxia suddenly pulled out the long spear on his back, and his eyes turned golden like a snake's. He directly charged towards Chu Xiu. You even dare to touch the person that the evil extreme sect wants to recruit. Chu Xiu, you're courting death. Chapter 431. Xianxia's sudden attack came as a surprise to the warriors of the omniscient sect. Although Xianxia looked arrogant and impulsive on the outside, he was still rational. Now that Xianxia attacked Chu Xiu without saying a word, it was because he was angry, extremely angry. However, this anger was not directed at Chu Xiu, but at the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult. Xianxia had always been regarded as the future heir of the omniscient sect and the hope of the sect's rise since he started cultivating. Even the sect master was polite to him. As a result, the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult rejected him just now, and she even insulted him in public. This almost made Xianxia lose his mind in anger, and he was about to attack. Fortunately, under the persuasion of the other warriors of the omniscient sect, Xianxia still retained some rationality and did not make a move. However, he just happened to meet Chu Xiu, and Chu Xiu spoke as if he did not care about him. This made Xianxia immediately explode, and he directly charged at Chu Xiu with the blood flood dragon in his hand. In other words, he needed a fierce battle to vent his anger. Otherwise, Zhang Chufan, whom Xianxia thought was a liar, would not be worth fighting personally. Chu Xiu frowned as he looked at Xianxia, who was charging toward him. He had not dealt with Xianxia before, but logically speaking, he had only killed Zhang Chufan. Why was the other party so angry as if he had killed his father? Did he cultivate the Blood Flood Dragon Heart Sutra or the Furious Diamond Heart Sutra? However, since Xianxia wanted to fight, Chu Xiu did not mind accompanying him to the end. This time, killing Zhang Chufan was very important to Chu Xiu, but in fact, Chu Xiu did not do much. With so many of his subordinates working together, it was too easy to kill Zhang Chufan, so now Chu Xiu did not mind stretching his muscles. Chu Xiu's heavenly demon dance was unsheathed, and the dark ink-like demonic energy and blood-red murderous aura condensed. The saber will of the three blades of Avicii condensed and slashed down. It was as if the gates of hell had opened, and the power was extremely violent. A loud bang rang out as Chu Xiu's heavenly demon dance collided with Xianxia's blood flood dragon. Immediately, an extremely powerful shockwave erupted. Demonic qi and gang qi scattered in all directions. Chu Xiu and Xianxia took several steps back, and the ground under their feet began to crack as they retreated. They were evenly matched. Xianxia had refined the Blood Flood Dragon Inner Elixir and cultivated the Blood Flood Dragon Heart Sutra. In terms of physical strength, he was actually stronger than Chu Xiu. Even if Chu Xiu had the great King Kong divine power, he was no match for Xianxia in terms of physical strength. However, in terms of the quality of genuine qi, Chu Xiu was stronger than Xianxia. His cultivation was a combination of Taoism, Buddhism, and the devil. Even most warriors in the oneness of heaven and man realm could not compete with Chu Xiu in terms of the quality of genuine qi. Therefore, the battle just now was actually a situation where they were evenly matched. However, the figures of Chu Xiu and Xianxia moved again, and then they began to fight and slash crazily. Chu Xiu's blade momentum was extremely fierce and domineering, while the blood dragon in Xianxia's hand was even fiercer. Xianxia had cultivated the cultivation method of ferocious beasts, so when he fought, he was like a ferocious beast. Seeing the two people fighting like this, the other warriors of the extreme evil sect wanted to help, but Tangya and the others were watching from the side. If they dared to make a move, Tangya and the others would immediately stop them. The only one present who was qualified to intervene in the battle between these two people was the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult. Logically speaking, she came with Xianxia, and she should be on Xianxia's side. However, now the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult was sitting on the Black Panther, watching the battle between the two people as if she was watching a show, and had no intention of intervening. Seeing that the two people were fighting at a critical moment, she was even stroking the silky hair on the head of the Black Panther under her, as if she was interested. The Black Panther under her was also squinting at this time, shaking its head to cater to the touch of the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult. It did not look like a magical Black Panther, but more like a coquettish kitten. At this time, in the field, Chu Xiu and Yi Tianxia exchanged more than 10 moves back and forth. Both sides were evenly matched in terms of strength, and the power of the battle left everyone dumbfounded. These two people did not look like warriors of the Five Chi's origin realm at all. Even most masters of the unity of heaven and man realm might not necessarily be as powerful as these two people. At this moment in the fierce battle, Yi Tianxia had vented a lot of the anger in his heart. Chu Xiu also narrowed his eyes and said, "It's time to end it." As soon as Yi Tianxia frowned, he saw Chu Xiu's hand forming the inner binding seal, and his speed soared to the extreme in an instant. Almost in the blink of an eye, he appeared behind him. Yi Tianxia snorted coldly. He was indeed not good at things like speed, but Yi Tianxia's martial arts was to break all things with strength. As long as the strength was exerted to the extreme, what was the use of speed? The blood dragon in Yi Tianxia's hand swept out, and the scarlet spear aura circled around him. He even let out a fierce roar similar to a dragon's roar, and the spear aura was like a blood dragon swimming around. He thought that his defense was impeccable, and it would be useless no matter where Chu Xiu attacked from. Who would have thought that Chu Xiu would pinch the lion's seal with his hand at this time? In an instant, the sound of Buddha's voice exploded like thunder. It was as if it resounded in Yi Tianxia's ears, causing him to let out a muffled groan. The spear in his hand could not help but show signs of collapsing. At the same time, Chu Xiu's hand formed the perfect treasure bottle seal, and in an instant, the light in his hand shone brightly, fulfilling the wishes of all living beings, blooming supreme light. When the perfect Aquarius seal landed, it completely shattered Yi Tianxia's spear aura. Chu Xiu's strength was never just reflected in one point. In terms of strength, Chu Xiu could fight with Yi Tianxia to the point of being evenly matched, but Chu Xiu could completely change his method and defeat him in other areas. In the series of exchanges just now, Yi Tianxia almost subconsciously thought that Chu Xiu in front of him was a person of the devil's path. In the end, in the blink of an eye, Chu Xiu displayed such a powerful and authentic Buddhist method, and it directly caught Yi Tianxia off guard. Chu Xiu's figure did not stop, and both of his hands formed the great UnparalleledSwordWill seal at the same time. But at this time, Yi Tianxia, who had recovered a little, let out an angry roar, and the long spear in his hand was placed horizontally in front of him, bursting with a decisive force and smashing toward Chu Xiu. A loud bang rang out as Chu Xiu's great UnparalleledSwordWill imprint slammed into the blood serpent, causing a loud explosion. Yi Tianxia's hands couldn't help but feel numb. Even the power of the blood serpent's blood qi dissipated a little. But before he could counterattack, a strange change happened to Chu Xiu who was facing him. At this moment, Chu Xiu's eyes became as dark as the abyss. The moment Yi Tianxia looked into Chu Xiu's eyes, his body could not help but tremble, and his mental strength was instantly pulled into that abyss. The art of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth and soul transfer was almost impossible to escape in such a sudden attack, and Yi Tianxia was no exception. However, Yi Tianxia still had an advantage, and that was his strong qi and blood, which was enough to stabilize his mental strength. Moreover, his current state was very strange. After refining the blood dragon's Niden, his body contained a trace of the blood dragon's aura. The moment he was hit by the art of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth and soul transfer, the blood dragon tattoo on Yi Tianxia's chest began to heat up, and a dragon's roar broke through Chu Xiu's art of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth and soul transfer, completely waking Yi Tianxia up. But at this time, two powerful Buddhist lights bloomed in front of him, and two powerful great UnparalleledSwordWill seals fell. At this time, Yi Tianxia could only hurriedly block, but the blood dragon in his hand was directly blown away by the two great SwordWill seals by Chu Xiu and stabbed into the ground. The warriors of the evil pole sect all raised their eyebrows, and they were extremely nervous. Ever since Xianxia stepped into the Jianghu, this was the first time his weapon was directly blown away by someone. The holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult looked at Chu Xiu with a strange look in her eyes. It was very rare in the Jianghu to be able to switch between the devil and Buddha so easily. Even though the sixth demon sect cultivated both the devil and Buddha, in fact, the cultivation methods of the sixth demon sect were of the same nature. Whether it was the devil or the Buddha, they mainly cultivated mental strength. As for Chu Xiu, the mental energy cultivation method he used previously was a demonic cultivation method, while the Madra law he used now was a Buddhist cultivation method. One was a mental energy secret technique, while the other was a powerful and heavy Buddhist sect Madra law. These two things were completely different, but Chu Xiu was able to change them so smoothly and freely. There were very few people in the Jianghu who could do this. At this moment, Xianxia's expression finally changed a little. He attacked Chu Xiu because he wanted to fight and vent his anger after being humiliated by the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult. Only now did he realize that although he had vented most of his anger, he had kicked an iron plate. His weapon was blown away, but Chu Xiu on the opposite side threw a punch. He did not have a weapon, and neither did Chu Xiu. Of course, Xianxia knew that this was not because Chu Xiu deliberately wanted to be fair, but because Chu Xiu's close-range killing technique was not inferior to his saber technique. The punch condensed boundless killing intent and murderous aura, even staining the surrounding chi of heaven and earth with a scarlet color. There was a faint sound of ghosts and gods crying in the fist momentum. Sky extinguishing earth annihilating fist. Xianxia did not have a spear in his hand. He also roared and directly punched out. The fist momentum was straight, and gang energy erupted. A blood-colored dragon shadow wrapped around his arm and roared out. His arm was a spear, the blood dragon spear that could pierce the sky. There was a loud bang. Everything around had been covered by endless blood-colored gang energy, and the scene inside could not be seen clearly. But in the next moment, a figure was blasted out and retreated more than 10 steps. His face was pale, and even the blood dragon tattoo on his chest had become extremely dim at this time, as if it had lost its spirit. Chapter 432. Xianxia stared at Chu Xiu, unable to believe that he had been defeated. Although he was only at a disadvantage and the injury he suffered was not even a minor injury, Xianxia knew that he had already lost. From the beginning, Xianxia's goal was the few outstanding young talents in the righteous sects, such as Zhang Qingjun and Zhong Xian. He had always regarded these people as his imaginary opponents. Although he had heard of Chu Xiu's name a long time ago, Xianxia had never regarded Chu Xiu as an opponent. Now, he was defeated by Chu Xiu. This kind of complicated feeling was absolutely impossible for outsiders to understand. At this moment, the Holy Lady of the Moon-worshipping cult said in an impatient tone, "Xianxia, have you fought enough? If you have, leave quickly. Don't forget where you are. This is not your evil sect, nor my moon-worshipping cult. Since Zhang Chufan was dead, what was the point of them wasting time here?" Whether it was Xianxia or the Holy Lady of the Moon-worshipping cult, they had no intention of avenging Zhang Chufan. The land of Eastern Qi was the most prosperous place in the martial arts world. Whether it was the moon-worshipping cult or the evil sect, their power here was limited. There was not much meaning in continuing to dawdle here, except for the risk of swaggering through the market. Xianxia glared at Chu Xiu, but he was not stupid enough to say anything. Instead, he turned around, pulled out the blood dragon that had been sent flying by Chu Xiu, and turned to leave. Before the Holy Lady of the Moon-worshipping cult left, she also glanced at Chu Xiu, but there was a look of interest in her eyes. In fact, she was indeed very interested in Chu Xiu, even more so than Xianxia. Looking at the back of the group of people leaving, Chu Xiu did not say anything. Chu Xiu was confident that he could defeat Yi Tianxia, but the strength of the saintess of the moon-worshipping cult was somewhat unfathomable. Even Chu Xiu could not tell if she had reached the unity of heaven and man realm. Therefore, if she wanted to leave, Chu Xiu would certainly not stop her. Anyway, his goal had been achieved. This group of people also came for Zhang Chufan. Fortunately, he was one step ahead. If the people of the evil extreme sect and the moon-worshipping cult got hold of Zhang Chufan, they would get the true inheritance of the demon heart hall from his mouth and confirm his identity. Then, Chu Xiu's identity in the Yinma clan would not be able to be hidden anymore. At this time, Tangya suddenly stood behind Chu Xiu and chuckled, "Lord, that holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult is interested in you." Without turning his head, Chu Xiu asked, "How do you know?" Tangya pretended to be an experienced person and said, "The premise for a woman to have a good impression of a man is curiosity. Obviously, she was very curious about you just now. The two of you are very likely to be together. In the legends of Jianghu, those holy maidens do not marry and are as pure as ice and as clean as jade. However, if they meet the person they like, it will be like dry wood and raging fire. Once it starts, no one can stop it. Lord, I feel that you are very likely to abduct this holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult and then write a Wulin love story." Chu Xiu turned his head, glanced at Tangya, and said, "Do you believe such a melodramatic thing? If someone really abducted the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult, the next day he would be chased by the moon-worshipping cult and even the entire Ming Mo clan in Jianghu. At the same time, he could experience Yi Xiaonan's heaven-mending heart sutra and Eastern Emperor Tai's sky-burning mirror. Also, those cliché stories of poor boys eloping with the young ladies of aristocratic families were just as ridiculous. Being well-matched in social status wasn't just a joke, especially for those big aristocratic families. Their daughters could stay unmarried for the rest of their lives, but they definitely couldn't marry a penniless poor boy. I heard from the Ghost Hand King that you have nothing to do during this period of time. Don't tell me you have been reading these boring Jianghu romance stories all day long? If you really have nothing to do, I can also find something for you to do. After all, Guanxi is so big. If you want to find something, it is still very easy." Tangya secretly cursed that the Ghost Hand King was secretly snitching on him. He quickly waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, Lord. I have a lot of things to do, and I'm almost too busy." Chu Xiu waved his hand and let the others leave with him. He did not continue to argue with Tangya. In fact, Chu Xiu knew what Tangya's current state was, but he did not care, and he did not want to care. Chu Xiu only had two attitudes towards his subordinates: one was ability, and the other was obedience. As long as one was capable and could obey Chu Xiu's orders, Chu Xiu dared to give them everything they wanted. As for the rest, Chu Xiu did not want to interfere with the hobbies of his subordinates, and how they behaved. After the matter was settled, Chu Xiu did not want to stay in Eastern Qi any longer. After all, this was not his territory, and there were no big shots in Lu'an County. It was not a big deal for him to kill people here, but if he ran into people from big forces who did not like him, he was afraid that it would be another conflict. Just when Chu Xiu was resting in the inn at night, a familiar fluctuation suddenly came from outside Chu Xiu's window. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows, and without alerting anyone, he directly concealed his breath and walked out of the door. Not far from the inn, Mr. Lu stood outside the forest next to the inn. His aura was condensed, and he frowned as he looked at Chu Xiu. At present, Mr. Lu's cultivation had condensed to the extreme, and he was only one step away. To be precise, he was only half a step away from stepping into the realm of Martial Dao Grandmaster. Mr. Lu was here because of Zhang Chufan. Zhang Chufan was so high profile in Eastern Qi, so naturally, the Phaseless Demon sect had also received the news. It was just that they did not receive the news earlier than Mei Qinglian. Moreover, Chu Xiu's identity as the successor of the Demon Heart Hall was not widely known, and only a few people in the Phaseless Demon sect knew about it. Therefore, when some of the disciples of the Phaseless Demon sect heard that Zhang Chufan claimed to be the successor of the Demon Heart Hall, they did not pay much attention to it. It was not until Mr. Lu, who was in closed-door cultivation, unexpectedly heard about this that he felt that something was wrong. He immediately stopped his closed-door cultivation and immediately came to find Chu Xiu. Since this Zhang Chufan claimed to be the successor of the Demon Heart Hall, who was Chu Xiu? It should be known that the Kunlun Devil cult had been destroyed for so many years, and there were many people who knew about the Kunlun Devil cult now. However, if you were to ask them who was in the Kunlun Devil cult, almost 99% of them would be confused. They could not even tell whether the Kunlun Devil cult had 4 demon lords or 8 demon lords in the past. The Demon Heart Hall was just a branch of the Kunlun Devil cult in the past. It could not be said to be weak, but it could not be said to be strong either. It was not very famous, and except for some sects or forces that were related to the Kunlun Devil cult in the past, no one else would know about it. However, Zhang Chufan knew about it now. He was a warrior who was born as a lone cultivator, and had never even stepped out of Eastern Qi in his life. Yet, he knew about the Demon Heart Hall, and he even revealed his demonic skills. This made Mr. Lu suspicious. When he arrived at Antai Prefecture, he found that Zhang Chufan was already dead. There was not even a trace of him left, and his body had been disposed of by Chu Xiu's men. Mr. Lu did not need to think too much. Chu Xiu, who was far away in Guangzhong, had suddenly appeared here and mobilized all the forces under his command to kill Zhang Chufan. This was enough to explain everything. There was a long silence. Mr. Lu did not speak, and neither did Chu Xiu. The atmosphere was extremely oppressive. At this moment, Mr. Lu suddenly said something superfluous. Zhang Chufan is dead? Chu Xiu nodded. He's dead. He's completely dead. There's not even a trace left. Mr. Lu nodded and suddenly asked, does the Saintess know about this? Chu Xiu said lightly, it was the Saintess who told me about this. Otherwise, why would I pay attention to these things in Eastern Qi? There was another moment of silence. Mr. Lu's expression did not change, but his eyes were a little erratic. After a long while, Mr. Lu said, I heard that you fought with Xianxia of the Omniscient sect today? How did it feel? Chu Xiu said in a low voice, his strength is not weak, but it can only be considered good at best. 90% of his strength comes from external forces. The inner elixir of the Blood Flood Dragon and the Heart Sutra of the Blood Flood Dragon can indeed bring him great strength, but Xianxia has not found his own martial arts path. As for the top few on the Longhu leaderboard, Zhang Chengzhen's Thunder, Zhong Xian's Madra, and Fang Qi Shao's Sword, they all have their own martial arts paths. Today, I can defeat Xianxia once. If we fight again in the future, I will be able to kill him. But the real problem is not Xianxia, but the Saintess of the moon-worshipping cult. That woman is not a simple person. Mr. Lu nodded and said, none of the Saintess of the moon-worshipping cult is simple. You are right not to provoke her. Take care. Senior Wei Shuya and the others will not know about this, and there is no need for them to know. I just hope that you will not let the Yinma clan down. Mr. Lu did not even ask whether Chu Xiu was real or not. For him, the result of this matter was already obvious. He had made the same choice as Mei Qinglian. It could be seen from the seemingly messy conversation between them. Zhang Chufan was already dead, not even his remains were left. Even if he was real, he was now fake. Only the living was real. He believed in Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu was still the rising star of the Yinma clan. He could compete with the Saintess of the moon-worshipping cult and the heroes of the righteous path. If they lost Chu Xiu, the Yinma clan would not be able to fight against these people. They would not even be able to find a young talent who could defeat Xianxia. Therefore, at this time, whether Chu Xiu was real or not was no longer meaningful. As long as Chu Xiu's existence was beneficial to the Yinma clan, then he was real. Also, since it was Mei Qinglian who informed Chu Xiu about this matter, it proved that Mei Qinglian already knew all this and had already made a choice. In this case, Mr. Lu felt a little more confident. Some things did not need to be so serious. It was rare to be confused. It was good for everyone. Chapter 433. With Mr. Lu's visit, Chu Xiu's crisis could finally be considered to have passed. Mr. Lu and Mei Qinglian could basically represent the attitude of most of the Yinma clan towards him. In addition, they were the only ones who knew Chu Xiu's true identity. It could be said that as long as he dealt with them, everything would be over. He led them all the way back to the Guanzhong torture room. Chu Xiu arranged for the others to go back first, while he went back to the main hall to report. On one hand, he greeted Guan Siyu. Of course, the most important thing was to greet Mei Qinglian. Chu Xiu hadn't gone to find Mei Qinglian yet. After receiving the news that Chu Xiu had returned, Mei Qinglian went straight to Chu Xiu's guest room to find Chu Xiu. Raising his eyebrows, Chu Xiu said in surprise, "Holy Maiden, aren't you afraid that someone will see you here in broad daylight?" Mei Qinglian said lightly, "Don't worry. In the backyard of the torture hall headquarters, no one dares to say anything. Let's talk about your matter. Has everything been settled? Has your butt been wiped clean?" Chu Xiu nodded and said, "That guy is already dead. Not even his dregs are left. Mr. Lu also came to find me. The matter has been completely resolved." Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Mei Qinglian also breathed a sigh of relief. After all, she chose to stand on Chu Xiu's side at that time. If Chu Xiu had screwed up and an accident had happened, his identity would have been exposed by the Yinma clan. Then she would also have been in trouble. However, Mei Qinglian still sneered and said, "To be honest, this is the first time I've seen such a bold guy like you. You actually dared to play such a trick in front of so many senior experts of the Yinma clan. You really have no limit to your courage." Chu Xiu said lightly, "Sometimes, the boundary between what is true and what is false is not important. The result is the most important. Isn't the current result good? The news from Eastern Qi has arrived. Saintess, you can find out what kind of person Zhang Chufan is. Letting him be the successor of the Kunlun devil cult, the face of the Yinma clan, is a disaster." Mei Qinglian nodded. She had to admit this point. Although she had never met Zhang Chufan, she knew that there were not many in the martial world who could be compared to Chu Xiu. The Yinma clan was already in decline. Without Chu Xiu, where could they find another martial artist who could be ranked in the top 10 of the Longhu list? At this time, Chu Xiu suddenly said, "By the way, this time the evil Pole sect also made a move. They also wanted to recruit Zhang Chufan, but they were a step too late. I beat them to it. I fought with Yi Tianxia of the evil Pole sect, but what surprised me the most was that the saintess of the moon-worshipping cult was with the evil Pole sect at this time. Has the relationship between the moon-worshipping cult and the evil Pole sect become so good? Moreover, my strength is stronger than Yi Tianxia, but I still can't see through the saintess of the moon-worshipping cult. Among the younger generation, her strength is enough to be ranked in the top 10 of the Longhu list, maybe even in the top 5. Mei Qinglian said disdainfully, "Do you think the evil Pole sect is worthy of being brothers with the moon-worshipping cult? They should be completely licking their boots. Not to mention the saintess of the moon-worshipping cult, even if the evil Pole sect sent out an emissary, the evil Pole sect would have to treat them politely. Also, the saintess of the moon-worshipping cult is not to be trifled with. After all, the saintess of the moon-worshipping cult is a secret technique in the moon-worshipping cult. Even the leader can't cultivate it. Only the saintess is qualified to touch it. But you don't have to worry too much about her. The saintess of the moon-worshipping cult is famous now. In the past, when the Kunlun devil cult was strong, many demonic sects had saintesses, saints, and so on. This was also learned from the Kunlun devil cult. Since the Kunlun devil cult is already known as a holy cult, it's normal to have saints and saintesses. It's just that the saintess of the moon-worshipping cult is a bit special. The selection is the strictest, and the status of the saintess of each generation is very high. However, the saintess of each generation is also very short-lived. Even if they have stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, no one can live more than 50 years old. In my opinion, it's probably because the cultivation method of the Holy Maiden of the Moon-worshipping cult is flawed. Although it can create a powerhouse above the martial Dao Grandmaster level in a short time, it will seriously affect their lifespan. Mei Qinglian's tone was very disdainful of the evil pole sect, but she didn't have a good tone with the saintess of the moon-worshipping cult. Chu Xiu secretly guessed that Mei Qinglian was jealous. After all, they were both women, and they were both demonic path saintesses. However, although the saintess of the moon-worshipping cult was temporarily weak, her status was higher than Mei Qinglian's. After all, one was alone, while the other was backed by the moon-worshipping cult. Of course, Chu Xiu also suspected that Mei Qinglian was jealous that the saintess of the moon-worshipping cult was younger than her. Of course, Chu Xiu wouldn't say this out loud. Otherwise, he would really become an idiot. Mei Qinglian snorted softly and said, "All right, I won't talk to you anymore. You've been back for so long. Go and see Guan Xiu first." After saying that, Mei Qinglian turned around and left. In the past, when Chu Xiu returned to the Guanzhong torture room to report the situation, Guan Xiu was very indifferent. As long as Chu Xiu won the reputation of the Guanzhong torture room, that was enough. He would be rewarded and punished. The process was very simple. However, this time, Guan Xiu didn't talk about rewards and punishments. Instead, she looked at Chu Xiu, who was standing in front of her, and frowned. After a while, she asked, "You said that you went to Eastern Qi to kill the remnants of the devil cult and spread the name of the Guanzhong torture room. But in the end, why did you slaughter the Yang family of the Antai prefecture and fight with the people from the evil pole sect?" Chu Xiu's expression didn't change as he said, "The Yang family is the accomplice of the remnants of the Kunlun devil cult. If I don't destroy the Yang family, I won't be able to kill them. They will continue to cause trouble for me. When that time comes, I won't receive praise from the pugilistic world, but ridicule. As for the evil pole sect, I didn't take the initiative to cause trouble for them. Instead, the people from the evil pole sect suddenly went crazy and attacked me." Guan Xiu rubbed the space between his brows and said, "Chu Xiu, don't think that the Guanzhong torture room is now stable and can be considered a top figure in the pugilistic world. In reality, the Guanzhong torture room is still not stable enough. We're just sitting on the edge of a volcano. Sitting in the middle of the three countries, the Guanzhong torture room is also trying to survive in the cracks. Naturally, we should develop steadily and keep a low profile. It's a good thing that you've spread the name of the Guanzhong torture room, but at the same time, you have to control the degree of this prestige. This time, you went to Eastern Qi with great fanfare to destroy the Yang family and destroy the evil pole sect. Remember, don't do this kind of thing in the future. Otherwise, if something big happens, even I can't protect you." When Chu Xiu heard this, he nodded and didn't refute. Guan Xiu of the Guanzhong torture room was a man of his word. He just had to listen to what he said. As for whether he would do it or not, that was not certain. Moreover, Chu Xiu had discovered a flaw in Guan Xiu's character. It wasn't exactly a flaw, but his way of doing things was too conservative. It was true that Guanzhong was in the middle of the three countries, but the Guanzhong torture room didn't need stability. They needed to jump out of this crack. Otherwise, if something unexpected happened and the three countries went to war again, the unlucky one would be the Guanzhong torture room. It could be said that the safety of the entire Guanzhong torture room was in the hands of others. It was abnormally dangerous. Guan Xiyu knew all of this, but he didn't want to solve it. Perhaps this had something to do with his character. In the past, Chu Kuanga had laid the foundation for the Guanzhong torture room, and Guan Xiyu had completely carried forward and stabilized the Guanzhong torture room with this foundation. But it seemed like he could only do this much. It seemed like Guan Xiyu couldn't do what Chu Kuanga had done to open up the Guanzhong torture room to a new level. However, this wasn't a problem that Chu Xiu should worry about. He couldn't be bothered to worry about these things for the Guanzhong torture room. At this moment, Guan Xiyu suddenly said, "You came back a little early this time." Chu Xiu said in surprise, "Early?" Guan Xiyu nodded and said, "There is something that requires you to go to Eastern Wu County again. If you had come back a little later, I would have asked someone to bring you a letter. Then you wouldn't have wasted time going back to the Guanzhong torture room. Now, you have to go to Eastern Qi again." Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "If there is something in the torture chamber, as a subordinate, I should do my best." Did something big happen in Eastern Qi? Guan Xiyu shook his head and said, "Actually, it's not a big deal. The Luo family of Wu County, one of the 9 great families, wants to have a martial arts competition to find a spouse. They sent an invitation to the Guanzhong torture room to attend the ceremony. In the Jianghu, it's inevitable to socialize. The Guanzhong torture room doesn't want to offend the Luo family of Wu County, so naturally, we have to send someone there. You have a great reputation in the Jianghu, and you are also the Guanxi torture officer of the Guanzhong torture room, so this kind of thing needs to be done by you." At this point, Guan Xiyu made a rare joke with Chu Xiu. She said, "I heard that you are good friends with Luo Feiheng of the Luo family of Wu County. Although that girl has a strange temper, her strength is not bad, and her looks are not bad. She is also the eldest daughter of the Luo family of Wu County. This time, the Luo family is holding a martial arts competition to find a spouse. If you can marry Luo Feiheng, it will be a good story." Chu Xiu ignored Guan Xiyu's joke, but this news shocked Chu Xiu. Why did Luo Feiheng suddenly start a martial arts competition to find a spouse? In the original plot, she should have been forced to marry Xiahou in the future. Thinking of this, Chu Xiu suddenly guessed something. It seemed that this matter really had something to do with him. Xiahou Wujiang had died in his hands during the righteous and demonic battles on Mount Fuyu, so who could Luo Feiheng marry? Even if the Luo family of Wu County wasn't strong and needed to curry favor with Xiahou, it was still one of the 9 great families. Luo Feiheng was also in the top 10 of the Longhu list. Without Xiahou Wujiang, it could be said that no one from the Xiahou family was worthy of Luo Feiheng, and the Luo family of Wu County wouldn't be so idiotic as to marry Luo Feiheng to an ordinary disciple of the Xiahou family. Therefore, from the moment Xiahou Wujiang died, the plot changed. However, Chu Xiu still didn't understand. If the Luo family of Wu County could think of such a cliché martial arts competition to find a spouse, were they really worried that Luo Feiheng wouldn't get married? Chapter 434. Many people in the pugilistic world used martial arts competitions to find a spouse, but most of them were used by small aristocratic families. There were also many young people with potential among the rogue cultivators. Some of the descendants of small aristocratic families were disappointing. However, if they had a beautiful daughter, they would use the method of martial arts to find a spouse. They would choose a young warrior with potential to marry their daughter. At the same time, it could also help their family in the future. However, with the Wu County's Luo family's influence and Luo Feiheng's strength, did they need these things? Chu Xiu couldn't help but wonder, the Wu County's Luo family is also using martial arts competitions to find a spouse? If an itinerant cultivator really wins the competition, would the Wu County's Luo family really dare to marry Luo Feiheng to an itinerant cultivator? Guan Xiyu shook her head and said, "Of course the Luo family wouldn't do such an idiotic thing. This so-called martial arts competition for a spouse is very suspicious. At the very least, the people the Luo family invited are the outstanding disciples of various aristocratic families. With them, how can an itinerant cultivator stand a chance? However, I heard that Luo Feiheng did something outrageous and angered the Luo family's elders. That's why the Luo family wants to marry Luo Feiheng as soon as possible. Moreover, this time, Luo Feiheng has no choice but to marry. The Wu County's Luo family's strength has been declining in recent years. Not only is the older generation of martial artists getting old, but there is also no one in the younger generation who can shoulder the responsibility of the family except for Luo Feiheng. That's why the Luo family is so anxious to get married. In this martial arts competition for a spouse, the Wu County's Luo family even invited the heir of the Xianxia Ying family, young Master Peerless, Ying Bailu. According to the news, the Luo family has long been in contact with the Ying family. If there are no accidents, this martial arts competition for a spouse is just a show. In the end, the winner will definitely be Ying Bailu. This so-called martial arts competition for a spouse will become an engagement ceremony to show the pugilistic world that the Luo family also has external help, and an extremely strong one at that. Chu Xiu frowned slightly. Things had changed too much. How did the Ying family of Xianxia city get involved? Among the 9 great clans, the Xianxia Ying clan was the current leader of the 9 great clans and also the one with the longest history. In fact, the Xianxia Ying clan had existed even before the great calamity of the ancient age. Legend had it that the Ying family of Xianxia had the bloodline of the ancient imperial family. However, for some reason, the Ying family had set up a rule that forbade their disciples from having anything to do with the imperial court. It was said that thousands of years ago, there was a collateral disciple of the Ying clan who walked out of the Ying clan of Xianxia and founded a dynasty. However, when he wanted to turn the entire Ying clan of Xianxia into a royal family, the Ying clan expelled this disciple from the Ying clan's genealogy and sealed off the clan. It was not until the dynasty was destroyed that the Ying clan reappeared in Jianghu. The Xianxia Ying clan had a very long history, and they had countless trump cards. All these legends only serve to increase the mysteriousness of the Xianxia Ying clan. As for whether they were true or not, no one knew. However, there was no doubt that the Ying clan of Xianxia was truly very powerful. For the past thousands of years, there had been almost no one who could match up to them as the leader of the 9 great clans. The current successor of the Ying clan of Xianxia, Ying Bailu, was also an outstanding person. It was said that when Ying Bailu was born, a white deer came to the Ying clan with the 7-colored Ganoderma in its mouth. With the 7-colored Ganoderma, Ying Bailu built his foundation, and that was how Ying Bailu got his name. The white deer was an auspicious sign. An existence like this who was born with auspicious signs would definitely not be an ordinary person. Whether this was true or not, probably no one other than the Ying clan of Xianxia knew. However, it was undeniable that Ying Bailu was indeed a genius. At the age of 2, he was already familiar with ancient books of poetry. At the age of 5, he was able to recite the Ying clan's secret, royal heavenly treasure records backwards. At the age of 12, he stepped into the innate realm. Things like bottlenecks were practically non-existent to Ying Bailu. What was even more amazing was that Ying Bailu was not only accomplished in martial arts. He was also proficient in other areas such as poetry, astrology, military strategy, and so on. Therefore, Ying Bailu's nickname was Young Master Unparalleled. In terms of comprehensive abilities, Ying Bailu could be said to be unparalleled in the world. Right now, Ying Bailu was ranked 5th on the Longhu leaderboard, just above Chu Xiu. However, most people felt that Ying Bailu's ranking was a little low. It was because he had fought too few times. Otherwise, Ying Bailu would definitely be ranked in the top 3. Also, Ying Bailu wasted most of his time on researching all sorts of things, delaying his martial arts cultivation. Otherwise, Ying Bailu might have become a martial arts grandmaster by now. Of course, it was mostly women who thought this way. In the pugilistic world, Ying Bailu was still very popular. At the very least, he was very popular among women. In his previous life, Luo Feiheng was forced to marry Xiahou Wujiang. In the eyes of the Luo clan, Luo Feiheng was probably only worthy of marrying Xiahou Wujiang at that time. In this life, although the Luo clan status did not change, Luo Feiheng's status had changed a little. Back at the World Sword Sect Conference, Luo Feiheng teamed up with Xia Xiaolu and Mo Tianlin to fight against Xiahou Wujiang. Luo Feiheng could be said to have shone brilliantly. Therefore, he successfully entered the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard, and his value also rose. At that time, Luo Feiheng could only be worthy of the Xiahou clan. But now, in the eyes of the Luo clan, Luo Feiheng's achievements were almost worthy of the Xiangshuaying clan. Moreover, Xiahou Wujiang was also dead, so the Luo clan clung to the Xiangshuaying clan. This move made Chu Xiu sneer in his heart. From the top to the bottom of the Luo clan, except for Luo Feiheng, if everyone in the Luo clan thought this way, then the Luo clan would not be far from complete decline and destruction. If any aristocratic clan reached the point where they had to use their own children to ensure their status through marriage, then they would really be at the end of their rope. Among aristocratic clans, marriage could only play the role of icing on the cake. Both parties used the relationship of marriage to cooperate with each other. Moreover, the bloodline of the martial artists from aristocratic clans would not be too bad. Therefore, marriage with an aristocratic clan of the same strength could also ensure their bloodline to be strong. But if someone regarded marriage as a necessary life-saving means, then it would really be a joke. It was simply wishful thinking to rely on marriage to solve the problem because one's own family was not living up to expectations. There were so many sects and aristocratic clans in the Jianghu, but none of them relied on marriage to maintain their status. Seeing that Chu Xiu did not speak for a long time, Guan Xiyu said, "What's wrong? Are you really interested in Luo Feiheng? If you are really interested, then you can personally participate in the joust for a spouse. You will still have a chance if you participate." The Wu County's Luo clan and the Xiangshuaying clan should have preliminary contact, but they have not formally discussed it yet. There should be a problem somewhere. Otherwise, the Wu County's Luo clan would not have invited us to watch the joust for a spouse, but the engagement banquet of the two aristocratic clans. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "I and Luo Feiheng are just friends. I don't think that much for the time being. Moreover, even if I really go on stage, the Wu County's Luo clan will probably go back on their word." Guan Xiyu raised her eyebrows and nodded. That's true. Guan Xiyu understood what Chu Xiu meant. Since the Wu County's Luo clan wanted to rely on marriage to ensure the Luo clan's status, then they had to choose their marriage partner well. Although Chu Xiu was not weak, his reputation in the Jianghu was not very good. Most importantly, Chu Xiu came from the Guanzhong torture room. In theory, the Guanzhong torture room was much stronger than the Wu County's Luo clan, at least several times stronger. However, the Guanzhong torture room was far away in the Guanzhong Pass, which was located in the middle of the three countries. It was not very strong outside. Therefore, if something happened to the Wu County's Luo clan, the Guanzhong torture room would definitely not be able to help the Luo clan. However, aristocratic clans like the Xiahou clan and the Yin clan were already strong. Moreover, they were both in the Eastern Qi. The benefits of a marriage alliance with them were obvious. Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said, "In that case, I will take my leave. I will go to the Wu County's Luo clan tomorrow." Guan Xiyu nodded and said, "Don't worry. This time, it's just a ceremony. It's not a big deal." Chu Xiu nodded. However, he still chose to leave for the Wu County's Luo clan the next day. With Luo Feiheng's personality, it was obvious how she would face this joust for a spouse. If she did not cause a scene, Luo Feiheng would definitely not let it go. On the surface, Chu Xiu was Luo Feiheng's good friend. He was also a member of the 9-branch hall. Xia Xiaolu, Mo Tianlin, and the others would probably come. Therefore, Chu Xiu could not ignore it. The sooner he went, the sooner he could discuss it. Therefore, after leaving the torture hall's headquarters, Chu Xiu did not even return to the Guanxi region. He directly sent a constable to the Guanxi region to report the news, and he went to the Wu County's Luo clan alone. This time, he came to attend the ceremony. Since that was the case, it was useless to bring his subordinates. The Wu County's Luo clan would not allow so many people to enter the clan. The Wu County was located in the southeast of the eastern Qi. This place was surrounded by mountains and rivers, and the scenery was beautiful. It was famous for being fertile and could be considered as the center of the Central Plains. The Wu County's Luo clan was the largest force in the entire Wu County. Moreover, their reputation as one of the 9 great aristocratic clans had spread throughout the Jianghu. This time, the Wu County's Luo clan's joust for a spouse attracted many people to watch the show. Of course, they were only here to watch the show. Probably not many people would dare to enter the arena. It must be known that Luo Feiheng used to be in the top 10 of the Longhu list. It was only recently that he was suddenly pushed out of the top 10 by Marquis Wen Lu Fengxian, who suddenly appeared on the list. Therefore, a martial artist who was worthy of Luo Feiheng must be qualified to be on the Longhu list. What would the others do? Would they just embarrass themselves? The Luo clan's Luo clan manor was located beside the Nanluo River, which passed by the Wu County. The scenery was beautiful, and the qi of heaven and earth was rich. Looking at the Luo clan's manor and the martial artists coming and going, Chu Xiu could not help but shake his head. The Luo clan looked as glorious as ever, but in reality, he could feel the Luo clan's declining spirit from the Luo clan's martial artists coming and going. Chapter 435. As one of the 9 major aristocratic families, the Luo clan from Wu County was once glorious. However, the world was full of ups and downs. Even a dynasty was constantly changing, let alone a family like the Luo clan from Wu County. Therefore, it was normal for the Luo clan from Wu County to be weak. According to what Chu Xiu knew, there was only one martial Dao master in the entire Luo clan from Wu County. It was the patriarch of the Luo clan from Wu County, and he was probably not young anymore. Meanwhile, Luo Feiheng's father, Luo Tianyang, was the patriarch of the Luo clan from Wu County. He was only at unity of heaven and man. At this moment, Luo Tianyang was the one taking care of the guests at the entrance of the Luo clan from Wu County. In all fairness, Luo Tianyang was doing quite well. He looked like he was in his 40s. He had a short beard and a handsome face. Even though he was a little old, his charm was still the same. In fact, one could tell just by looking at Luo Feiheng. Someone who could give birth to a daughter like her would definitely not look too bad. If the difference was really huge, Luo Tianyang might have a butler with the surname Wang. However, in this pugilistic world, one couldn't rely on one's looks to solve all problems. Even if one was as handsome as Lu Fengxian, the reason why he was able to ascend to the dragon and tiger rankings was because of the ancient halberd in his hands and not his looks. Among the 9 major clans, those who could assume the position of clan master were almost all martial Dao grandmasters, just like Xiahozhen. However, when the 5 major aristocratic families had a meeting, Luo Tianyang was standing among a bunch of martial Dao masters. The situation was extremely awkward. It was like a chicken standing among a flock of cranes. Therefore, although Luo Tianyang looked good, there was an aura on him that could not be concealed. It was a humble aura. It could even be said that if Luo Tianyang wasn't here to welcome the guests, most people would have mistaken him for a butler instead of a family head. At this moment, Chu Xiu saw a familiar face. It was Mo Tianlin. Mo Tianlin walked in front of Chu Xiu. When he saw Luo Tianyang, Mo Tianlin walked over and cupped his hands. "Greetings, Uncle Luo." Luo Tianyang beamed at Mo Tianlin and said, "So, it's Tianlin. Not bad, your cultivation has improved again. It seems you are not far from the 5-cheese origin stage." Luo Tianyang's attitude towards Mo Tianlin was quite good. Initially, the Luo family was prepared to unite with the Mo family through marriage, and Mo Tianlin was also his prospective son-in-law. However, Mo Tianlin was a little disappointing. After getting familiar with Luo Feiheng, he felt that he would never be able to control a woman like her. So, he successfully turned her into a good friend, and the matter was left unsettled. Mo Tianlin said politely, "Uncle, you flatter me. My strength is not worth mentioning. If I were to fight with Feiheng now, I probably wouldn't even be able to take a few moves from him. By the way, where is Feiheng? Why would Feiheng want to have a martial arts competition for a spouse?" The corner of Luo Tianyang's mouth revealed a trace of an unnatural smile. A grown girl should get married. Feiheng isn't young anymore. Since she doesn't want to, she can only rely on the family to help her. However, she isn't feeling well today, so she didn't come out. Mo Tianlin frowned and said, "Not feeling well? Then I'll go see Feiheng." Luo Tianyang quickly waved his hand and said, "No, Feiheng can't see guests right now." Just when Mo Tianlin was about to say something, Chu Xiu walked over and sneered. "Luo Feiheng isn't feeling well? Even an idiot wouldn't believe you, Master Luo. He wasn't injured for no reason, and there were no hiccups in his cultivation. Yet, a 3-flower realm warrior said that he wasn't feeling well. Do you believe this? In any case, I don't believe it." When Mo Tianlin turned around and saw Chu Xiu, his eyes lit up. Sometimes, it was obvious that Chu Xiu's words were much more effective than his. In other words, it was much more convenient. Just like what was happening now. The Mo family had a good relationship with the Luo family. The two families had been friends for generations. Mo Tianlin was a junior, so naturally, he couldn't say much. However, Chu Xiu was different. He had nothing to do with the Luo family. Luo Feiheng was his good friend, but Luo Feiheng's father was not. Moreover, according to Chu Xiu's knowledge, Luo Feiheng hated her father like an enemy. Luo Tianyang looked at Chu Xiu and frowned. "Who are you?" Chu Xiu took out the invitation to the Guanzhong torture room and threw it to Luo Tianyang. He said faintly, "Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu." As soon as he said this, everyone present subconsciously looked at Chu Xiu. Even Luo Tianyang felt a little pressured. When facing Mo Tianyang, Luo Tianyang could still put on the airs of a senior. However, when facing Chu Xiu, Luo Tianyang could not do so. Chu Xiu was ranked 6th on the Longhu leaderboard. Although he was only at the 5-cheese gathering to the origin stage, he had killed more than 1 or 2 warriors at the unity of heaven and man realm. Moreover, some of them were even stronger than Luo Tianyang. In other words, it would be very easy for Chu Xiu to kill Luo Tianyang if he wanted to. However, although Luo Tianyang felt pressured, this was the Wu County's Luo family. No matter how strong Chu Xiu was, he couldn't show off in front of the Luo family. Therefore, Luo Tianyang immediately snorted and said, "Chu Xiu, Luo Feiheng is my daughter. I naturally know her situation. This time, you are all here to watch the ceremony. The Luo family will welcome you. However, if you want to cause trouble, then don't blame the Luo family for being rude." Hearing this, Chu Xiu sneered. "Luo Feiheng is your daughter? You are really a failure as a father to betray your own daughter." Everyone present saw that there seemed to be some conflict here, and they all came over to watch the show. In fact, everyone quite agreed with what Chu Xiu said. The underworld was only so big. Who didn't know each other? They all knew about the Luo family's bullsh*t. Speaking of which, even the others felt pity for Luo Feiheng. She clearly had potential and strength and was even in the top 10 of the Longhu list. However, just because she was a woman, she had to give way to a man. It was really somewhat pitiful. However, although it was pitiful, everyone also knew that the Luo family's choice was considered normal. If the Luo family was strong and ranked in the top of the 9 great families, then Luo Feiheng could naturally be the eldest daughter of the Luo family without any worries. Not to mention the forced marriage, Luo Feiheng could marry whoever she wanted as long as there was no problem with her taste. However, with the current situation of the Luo family, Luo Feiheng naturally became a sacrifice. After all, no one in the underworld had heard of a female patriarch. In the underworld, there were female patriarchs, such as sects like the Yu Palace. However, such sects were always in the minority. Luo Tianyang shouted angrily, "Who are you accusing of betraying their daughter?" "Chu Xiu, I respect you as an envoy from the Guanzhong torture room and a good friend of my daughter. I will give you some face, but don't go too far." At this moment, another disdainful voice was heard. "You dare to talk but don't dare to do it? Your Luo family is clearly selling their daughter, but now you dare not admit it? If you have the ability, call Luo Feiheng out. I want to see what she has to say." As the crowd split apart, a young man with a long blade on his back and a cold expression walked over. "Flying feather blade, Xia Xiaolu." The people present almost instantly recognized Xia Xiaolu's identity. After all, he was a regular on the Longhu list and a good friend of Luo Feiheng. Now, 3 people stood out to interrogate Luo Feiheng's whereabouts. Moreover, all 3 of them were elites on the Longhu list. Behind them stood Shang Yang's Imo family, Guanzhong torture room, and West Chu's World Alliance. This level of power was difficult for Luo Tianyang to resist. The most important thing was that the Luo family was not strong enough, so they could not be forceful. At this moment, another person spoke. However, it was not to support Chu Xiu, but to target Chu Xiu. "The 3 of you are really funny. Senior Luo is Luo Feiheng's biological father. Do you think he will harm Luo Feiheng? It's normal for Luo Feiheng, as a girl, to find it inconvenient to meet him. However, the 3 of you are here pestering him. What are your intentions?" Nie Donglu walked out from the crowd, holding a jade folding fan in his hand. He had a faint smile on his face, but there was a hint of coldness in his gaze when he looked at Chu Xiu. Ever since he failed to kill Lu Fengxian in northern Yen, he and Chu Xiu had shed all pretense of cordiality and formed an irreconcilable enmity. Since that was the case, he naturally did not need to feign civility with Chu Xiu in front of others. It was already a show of restraint that they did not curse or attack each other. The heavenly demon dance in Chu Xiu's hand hummed softly. The next moment, he grabbed it and pointed it at Nie Donglu. "Nie Donglu, last time in northern Yen, I couldn't find a chance to kill you because your father was there. Now, you've jumped out of your own accord. Do you dare to fight to the death?" Nie Donglu was not angered by Chu Xiu's attitude. He said calmly, "Chu Xiu, if you want to fight, I'll naturally keep you company. However, we are both guests at the Luo residence in Wu County. How can we fight here?" Chu Xiu sneered. Nie Donglu was still the same. Even though he had become Han Baxian's disciple, he had not learned Han Baxian's domineering manner. If he wanted Nie Donglu to fight face to face, he would have to wait until Nie Donglu was absolutely confident. At this moment, the surrounding people looked at Chu Xiu and the others as if they were watching a show and did not mind the matter blowing up. Chu Xiu and the others, who had caused a ruckus due to Luo Feiheng's incident, had already attracted a lot of attention. Now, Nie Donglu had popped up. Who else would appear later? However, the crowd soon realized that there would not be a fight this time. That was because a dignified old man in a white robe walked out of the Luo residence. He looked at Chu Xiu and the others and said coldly, "Everyone, I don't care if you are Luo Feiheng's friends or some other relationship. Today is the day of the Wu County's Luo residence's marriage contest. If anyone dares to cause trouble here, don't blame me for bullying the weak. Chapter 436. The person who came out was the Luo family's patriarch, a martial Dao master who did not have much of a presence. That's right, although he was a martial Dao master, he did not have much of a presence in the Jianghu. The Luo family's patriarch was not famous in the Jianghu when he was young. As a disciple of the Luo family from Wu County, one of the 9 great clans, he did not even make it onto the Longhu leaderboard, let alone the honor leaderboard. The Luo family's patriarch had barely stepped into the martial Dao master realm when he was about to enter his old age. It could be said that it was extremely difficult. However, no matter how weak a martial Dao master was, he was still a martial Dao master. The Luo family's patriarch's appearance was enough to suppress Chu Xiu and the others. At that moment, a tall, muscular old man suddenly walked out and said, "Luo Jianyan, the Luo family has gone too far this time. You want to hold a martial arts competition for Luo Feiheng's spouse. Can't you even show your face?" Although the aura of the old man who walked out was not as strong as the Luo family's patriarch, he was on the same level as him. He was also a martial Dao master. Everyone was stunned, but they also recognized who this martial Dao master was. He was the previous pavilion master of the Divine Armament Pavilion, the crafting grandmaster Mo Yezi. Since the last Divine Armament Conference, Mo Yezi had joined forces with the Hidden Sword Villa to repair the demon sword longing. He had been criticized by many people in the Jianghu, so he had not appeared in the Jianghu for a long time. In reality, compared to the Hidden Sword Villa, Mo Yezi's goal was much simpler. He was a crafting master, and his life's goal was to refine weapons that surpassed his own limits. The demon sword longing was one of the 3 great demon weapons of the Kunlun devil cult in the past. It was the pinnacle of the world's famous swords. To be able to repair a demon weapon of this level, let alone the Hidden Sword Villa, Mo Yezi might even cooperate with the demon Dao. However, although Mo Yezi was a martial Dao grandmaster, he was a martial Dao grandmaster who could not fight. Everyone in the Jianghu knew that crafting grandmasters from the Divine Armament Pavilion had cultivation. After all, how could they refine weapons without martial cultivation? Ordinary flames would not be able to melt those extremely hard materials. Only by infusing true qi into the flames could it be done. However, cultivation was cultivation, combat strength was combat strength. Martial artists from the Divine Weapon Pavilion could not even be called martial artists, because they usually did not even know a single martial skill. They only had cultivation, but they did not know how to fight. Therefore, Mo Yezi's strength as a martial Dao grandmaster was somewhat lacking. He probably couldn't even defeat a martial artist at the unity of heaven and man realm. The Luo family's ancestor frowned. Mo Yezi, what are you doing here? Today was the day of the Wu County's Luo clan's marriage contest. The Wu County's Luo clan had invited people to attend the ceremony. Of course, they would not invite Mo Yezi, who was no longer the Divine Weapon Pavilion's pavilion master. Moreover, those who could come here were basically the younger generation of martial artists. There were not many older generation martial artists who came here to watch this kind of bustle. Mo Yezi said, "I'm here for Luo Feiheng. Her blood spear, Red Kite, is my proudest work. It has a chance to become a divine armament in the future. I don't care how you treat Luo Feiheng. That's your family's business, but I can't let my Red Kite fall into someone else's hands. I'm going to check on Luo Feiheng. I have to make sure she's okay." Looking at Mo Yezi, the Luo family's ancestor felt a headache coming on. Facing a grandmaster crafting grandmaster like Mo Yezi, Luo Jianyan could not beat or scold him. After all, Mo Yezi was the former master of the Divine Armament Pavilion. Although he had stepped down, his relationship with the Divine Armament Pavilion was still there. Offending Mo Yezi was the same as offending the Divine Armament Pavilion. Moreover, Mo Yezi had forged countless weapons over the years. He had also made a lot of connections. If these people were to make a move, even the Wu County's Luo clan would feel pressured. The Luo family's ancestor was helpless. Mo Yezi had forged weapons for so many people. Why did he treat Luo Feiheng differently? Mo Yezi, what do you want? This time, Luo Feiheng will not participate in the martial arts competition. The final winner of the arena will be the son-in-law of the Luo family, so she cannot be seen now. Mo Yezi said, it's just a marriage contest. It's not like she's already married. What kind of rule is this? When I forged the red kite, I didn't take a single cent from the Wu County's Luo clan. What's wrong? You thanked me so many times, but now you're turning your back on me? The Luo family's ancestor had a helpless expression. In fact, people like Mo Yezi were the most hated in the pugilistic world. Although they weren't strong, they had a lot of connections. They couldn't be touched. In the end, the Luo family's ancestor waved his hand and said, all right, if you want to go, then go. Luo Tianyang wanted to say something, but the Luo family's ancestor glared at him. At this time, Mo Yezi pointed at Chu Xiu and the others and said, these kids are Luo Feiheng's friends. They will go with I. Since he had already let one in, he didn't care about the second. Therefore, the Luo family's ancestor waved his hand and asked someone to bring them to see Luo Feiheng. When the surrounding people saw that there wasn't a fight, they were disappointed. They thought that there would be a show to watch. On the way, Mo Yezi looked at Chu Xiu and the others and said, it's not bad for that little girl, Feiheng, to have friends like you. The Luo clan has gone overboard this time. They used their own daughter in exchange for an uncertain future. Although it will be of some help to the Luo clan, it seems a little too despicable. Chu Xiu and the others nodded. They also knew that Luo Feiheng had a good relationship with Mo Yezi. In the past, the Luo clan had asked Mo Yezi to forge the blood spear red kite for them. It was Mo Yezi who went against everyone's opinion and gave the red kite to Luo Feiheng. He also said that the red kite could only be used to its fullest in Luo Feiheng's hands. After that, Mo Yezi treated Luo Feiheng very well. He treated Luo Feiheng like his own daughter. This wasn't just because of the weapon, but also because the two of them got along very well. During the previous God Weapon Conference, Chu Xiu and the others could only enter the Mirror Lake Manor after the God Weapon Conference officially started. However, Luo Feiheng could enter the Mirror Lake Manor earlier. He ate and drank there as if he was one of them. Unfortunately, Mo Yezi's backing was useless to Luo Feiheng because he was just a weapon-forging grandmaster. When asking for help, a weapon-forging grandmaster would naturally be respected. Their status was even higher than that of a martial Dao grandmaster. However, at such a critical moment, a weapon-forging grandmaster was obviously not as important as a normal martial Dao grandmaster. Luo Jianyan was willing to give Mo Yezi face, but he wouldn't cancel the martial arts contest just because of Mo Yezi. At this time, Mo Yezi suddenly looked at Chu Xiu and transmitted his voice to him. The saber in your hand is the weapon that I forged using arrays during the God Weapon Conference? Chu Xiu nodded and said, yes, it is. I still have to thank Grandmaster Mo Yezi for laying the foundation for my Sky Demon dance. Mo Yezi shook his head and said, no need to thank me. I originally wanted to use this weapon to test the method of forging using arrays. Moreover, I also wanted to use it as a shield. You being able to obtain it is a testament to your strength. Moreover, from the looks of it, you even added some materials to it, causing the demonic chi in it to increase. It's stronger than what I expected, and it also has the potential to become a god weapon. However, the demonic might of your weapon is a little too strong. You need to control your heart. Otherwise, the demonic chi will easily corrode your heart and affect your mind. Chu Xiu smiled and said, a weapon is a weapon, after all. It's only a weapon when held in the hands of a person. Otherwise, it's just a pile of scrap metal. If a person is affected by a weapon, then it only proves that the person using the weapon is too useless. Just like when the righteous and demonic Dao sects fought on Floating Jade Mountain, the Windcloud Sword Mound took out the famous Decimating Abyss. In the hands of others, the Decimating Abyss is the current era's Decimating Abyss. However, in the hands of a peerless powerhouse like Donghuang Tai, the so-called Decimating Abyss is simply a joke. The Decimating Abyss was easily refined into a Burning Heaven saber by him using the Burning Heaven mirror, and he can do whatever he wants with it. Mo Yezi looked at Chu Xiu in surprise, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. He hadn't expected that Chu Xiu would actually see things so clearly. Mo Yezi's habit was to let the weapon choose the person. In the eyes of most people, Mo Yezi believed that the weapon was more important than the person. However, in reality, Mo Yezi believed that only a sufficiently powerful person was qualified to control a sufficiently powerful weapon. Otherwise, if the two clashed, not only would the weapon not be able to display its power, but it would also cause the cultivator to be affected by the weapon and even suffer a backlash. The Luo family member who led the way brought everyone to a pavilion next to the Luo family's ancestral hall. When they saw the door, everyone present immediately frowned. The surroundings of the pavilion and the door were covered with arrays. Clearly, they were afraid that someone would escape. What did the Luo family mean by locking up Luo Feiheng here? Did they treat her as a prisoner? The Luo family's disciples waited outside. When Chu Xiu and the others pushed the door open and entered, they saw a strange scene. Luo Feiheng was actually sitting there with his legs crossed, holding a novel and eating sunflower seeds. He seemed to be very leisurely. Chu Xiu fixed his eyes on the book cover. The 3 words, Wind Moon Calamity, were written on the cover. There were also a few half-naked and enchanting women drawn on the cover. Just by looking at them, one could tell what the content of the book was. When he saw Chu Xiu and the others arrive, Luo Feiheng threw the book down and said in surprise, "Why did that bunch of old farts let you in?" "Oh, Senior Mo, you're here too. I understand now. I reckon that old fart let you go because he cared about Senior Mo's face." However, at this moment, Mo Tianlin frowned and said, "Are you injured?" Although Luo Feiheng looked leisurely, her face was a little pale. The aura of the 3-flower realm at one's prominence was also a little erratic. Anyone could see that she was currently seriously injured. Chapter 437. At this time, Luo Feiheng was locked up here, and she was seriously injured. Everyone could almost guess what was going on. Mo Tianlin frowned and asked, "Who did it?" Luo Feiheng said disdainfully, "It's that trash, Luo Tianyang. If he wasn't my father, I would have used all my strength to injure him. If I had reached the 5 Chi's origin realm, he wouldn't be my match." Hearing Luo Feiheng publicly call his father a good-for-nothing, everyone present, except for Chu Xiu, had a strange look on their faces. In fact, Luo Tianyang was indeed a bit of a good-for-nothing given his status and strength. Mo Tianlin asked curiously, "Why did Luo family head attack you?" "As far as I know, although Luo family head doesn't like you, he has never hit you. The conflict between Luo Feiheng and the Luo family has been going on for a long time, but they haven't completely fallen out. In the past, even if Luo Feiheng attacked the Luo family, she would only attack the younger generation. If the elders of the Luo family wanted to punish Luo Feiheng, they would just put her in confinement. This was the first time that Luo Feiheng was seriously injured. Luo Feiheng said faintly, "Because I crippled Luo Feiyun." Hearing this, everyone except for Chu Xiu raised their eyebrows. Luo Feiyun was Luo Feiheng's half-brother. He was also a person that the Luo family had been nurturing. However, according to what they knew, Luo Feiyun was only in the physical invulnerability realm. He hadn't even stepped into the underworld. In the Luo family, he had always been suppressed by his younger sister. However, even if Luo Feiyun was not as strong as Luo Feiheng, he was still a direct descendant of the Luo family. He was the future heir of the Luo family and was being nurtured by the Luo family. But now, Luo Feiheng said that she had crippled Luo Feiyun. This was a shocking matter. The Luo family's old ancestor was so angry that he slapped her to death. Everyone felt that she had already restrained herself. Mo Tianlin said helplessly, "Why did you cripple Luo Feiyun? After all, he's the only heir of the Luo family. You've really caused quite a stir this time. Could Luo Feiyun be cured? I heard that West Chu's Jianghu divine doctor, angering Yama Feng Buping once cured a martial artist whose martial arts were crippled." Luo Feiheng pursed his lips and said, "That thing of his was blasted into meat paste by me, how can he be healed? Not to mention infuriating the king Yen Luo to death, even a deity wouldn't be able to cure him." Hearing Luo Feiheng's words, everyone present suddenly felt that something was amiss. Mo Tianlin hurriedly said, "Wait. You said that you blasted Luo Feiyun into meat paste? When you said crippled, did you mean that you crippled his martial arts?" Luo Feiheng suddenly looked at Mo Tianlin's crotch and let out a strange laugh. "Of course, you are the thing that you understand. Otherwise, what are you?" Hearing this, Mo Tianlin suddenly felt a chill in his crotch. Except for Chu Xiu, everyone else had a strange look on their faces. Even Mo Yezi, who was a knowledgeable old man, couldn't help but have a slight change in expression at this time. Only Chu Xiu looked calm. It wasn't because he knew Luo Feiheng, but because he knew that Luo Feiheng did the same in the original plot. However, that should be a matter of the future. This time, what was wrong with Luo Feiyun? He actually provoked Luo Feiheng again, and in the end, he still lost his penis. Speaking of which, Luo Feiyun was really unlucky. Whether it was in the original plot or now, he couldn't escape the fate of being crippled. Even if Chu Xiu's butterfly effect changed a lot of things, the result still couldn't change him. This brother was really sad. However, this also explained why Luo Tianyang was so angry. After all, Luo Feiyun was his son, the son he valued the most. In the end, he became a eunuch. Although Luo Tianyang had more than one son, and he wouldn't let his lineage end without descendants, a eunuch definitely couldn't be the head of the family. The heir that he had cultivated was really crippled. This was also the reason why Luo Tianyang was so angry that he directly injured Luo Feiheng. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Making people die without descendants, what kind of hatred do you have? I'm very curious, how did your brother provoke you this time? Why did you have to be so ruthless?" Chu Xiu understood Luo Feiheng. Although this woman looked abnormal, somewhat violent and overbearing, in fact, she wasn't a real lunatic. She had a sense of propriety. When the elders of the Luo family made things difficult for her, Luo Feiheng only beat up the children of the elders. She also had a sense of propriety. Most of the injuries were superficial and minor. There wasn't even a serious injury. Now, Luo Feiheng was so angry that she made her brother die without descendants. This was too ruthless. One could imagine what Luo Feiyun had done. Hearing this, Luo Feiheng sneered and said, "That trash is courting death, so don't blame me for being ruthless. Previously, when I entered the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard, that idiot Luo Feiyun actually came to me and asked me to deliberately lose to him. Then, he would send the news to Wind Sweeping Tower so that he could enter the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard." Hearing this, Chu Xiu and the others were speechless. Was Luo Feiyun really an idiot? Or did he think that everyone in the pugilistic world was an idiot? Although the Longhu leaderboard could be manipulated under the table, it was only a slight change in the rankings. Strength and reputation were seen by everyone in the pugilistic world. How could it be falsified? Even if Luo Feiyun was the heir of the Luo family in Wu County, he was just a nobody in the pugilistic world. His strength was only at the physical invulnerability realm. Even if Luo Feiheng said that Luo Feiyun had defeated him, would Wind-Sweeping Tower believe it? Would everyone in the pugilistic world believe it? This was simply a joke. In the eyes of Chu Xiu and the others, a person who could make such a request was also a joke. Chu Xiu frowned and said, "You crippled him just because of such a small matter? This is not in your character. You should know the consequences of doing so." Luo Feiyun was an idiot, but Luo Feiheng was not. She should know the consequences of doing so. Therefore, when it came to such matters, Luo Feiheng just had to ignore this idiot. Why bother to cripple someone? In the end, he was implicated. Luo Feiheng said indifferently, "If this idiot hadn't targeted me, why would I cripple him? I heard that he acted first and reported later. He secretly contacted the Xianxia Ying family and wanted to marry me to them in exchange for the Ying family's support for the Luo family. Of course, it was also to support him and ensure that he would become the head of the Luo family. I'm not a commodity. Since he wanted to sell me, then I crippled him. It's fair and reasonable, isn't it?" Hearing this, Chu Xiu and the others shook their heads. Luo Feiyun was courting death. He couldn't blame others. Previously, they thought that it was the Luo family's decision to contact the Xianxia Ying family. If this was the case, Luo Feiheng might have resisted, but he wouldn't have done it so violently. After all, Luo Feiheng wasn't Chu Xiu. Luo Feiheng wouldn't do something like tricking his own father to death. But who would have thought that this matter was actually Luo Feiyun's own decision? Moreover, he acted first and reported later. After the matter was settled, he informed the Luo family so that they didn't even have the chance to regret it. Otherwise, they would have offended the Xianxia Ying family. Luo Feiyun dared to do such a thing. He was really courting death. Luo Feiheng had gotten off lightly by crippling him. Not killing him on the spot was already a sign of restraint. "Then what are you going to do now?" Chu Xiu asked. Luo Feiheng's handsome and beautiful face revealed a ferocious killing intent at this moment. "Originally, the Luo family had raised me for a lifetime. At a critical moment, although I'm a woman, I don't mind helping the Luo family. But now, the Luo family has treated me, Luo Feiheng, as a commodity. Very well, I want to see who will regret it the most." Raising his head to look at Chu Xiu and the others, Luo Feiheng revealed a series of shocking plans. Of course, Chu Xiu wasn't surprised. Compared to what he had done to the Chu family, Luo Feiheng was already merciful enough. Raising his head, Luo Feiheng looked at Mo Yezi, Chu Xiu, and the others and said, "Senior Mo, and the rest of you, if you help me, you will definitely offend the Luo family in the future. You might even offend the Ying family of Xianxia. I won't force you. Moreover, I have nothing now. Even if you believe me, I won't say empty words. Although I, Luo Feiheng, am a woman, I still know how to repay kindness. Today's matter will be repaid in the future." Mo Yezi smiled and shook his head. "Little Luo, don't be so serious. Although I'm no longer the Pavilion Lord of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, I still have some connections. The Luo family won't dare to touch me, and the Ying family of Xianxia is the head of the 9 great clans. They won't cause trouble for me over such a small matter. In fact, little Luo, you don't need to be so ruthless. Just delay this matter for a while. Give me some time, I'll find some connections and put pressure on the Luo family. When the time comes, Luo Jianyan will give in." A cold light flashed in Luo Feiheng's eyes as she said, "No. Since the Luo family doesn't treat me as a disciple of the Luo family, but as a commodity that can be traded at any time, why should I stay in the Luo family? They were the ones who pushed this matter to the extreme first." Chu Xiu smiled and said, "Don't look at me. You all know my ability to cause trouble. Not to mention the Luo family, I've even offended forces stronger than the Ying family of Xianxia. Now, it's not that much of a difference." Xia Xiaolu also said, "I've already made preparations before coming here. I rarely trouble my master, but as long as something happens, I believe my master will also help me bear it. Among these people, only Mo Tianlin didn't express his opinion. But in fact, among these people, Mo Tianlin was the first to know Luo Feiheng. Of course, this couldn't be blamed on Mo Tianlin for being a coward. Among these people, he was the one who had the most misgivings. Chapter 438. Mo Yezi was willing to help Luo Feiheng without any misgivings because he treated Luo Feiheng like a daughter. Ever since he forged the iris spear and gave it to Luo Feiheng, his attitude towards Luo Feiheng was even better than his own son. Moreover, Mo Yezi's situation was just as he said. With his status and connections, he wasn't afraid of the Luo clan or the Shangshuaying clan. The same went for Xia Xiaolu. The World Alliance was far away in West Chu, and with Qinqingdi's dominance, why would he need to be afraid of others? As for Chu Xiu, Luo Feiheng could be considered a good friend and a member of the Nine Halls. In terms of benefits, Luo Feiheng definitely wouldn't be an ordinary person in the future. It wasn't easy for her to establish the Buer Palace and stand tall in the world as a woman. If he helped her now, Chu Xiu wouldn't suffer in the future. Mo Tianlin had the most misgivings because the Mo clan wasn't strong and was only in eastern Qi. Moreover, his position as the successor of the Mo clan wasn't stable. There were many disciples in the Mo clan who weren't convinced by him and were always eyeing his position. Just when Mo Tianlin wanted to say something, Luo Feiheng spoke first. "All right, Mo Tianlin, I know your situation. Don't force yourself. Don't get involved in this matter." Hearing Luo Feiheng's words, Mo Tianlin raised his eyebrows and said, "What do you mean by force? I'm clearly very strong, okay? Don't talk about this matter anymore. I'm really going to get involved." Mo Tianlin wasn't a righteous person like Lu Fengxian, but he wasn't a cold-blooded person who would watch his friend get into trouble. In any case, Mo Tianlin had already thought it through. Even if the matter really got out of hand, as the most outstanding disciple of the Mo clan, he wouldn't be crippled or punished. At most, he would be scolded or punished to face the wall. He, Mo Tianlin, could bear it. As for other troubles, he could deal with it later. After Luo Feiheng thanked him, he didn't exchange any more pleasantries. At this moment, footsteps could be heard from outside. Luo Tianyang came in with some people and said, "All right, you've met him. The marriage contest is about to begin. Everyone, please go to the front." Luo Tianyang looked at Luo Feiheng with a complicated look in his eyes and said, "Feiheng, you go with him. Remember, don't cause trouble again. Otherwise, I won't be able to protect you if the old ancestor gets angry." As a father, it wouldn't be right to say that Luo Tianyang didn't have any feelings for Luo Feiheng. However, Luo Feiheng's position in Luo Tianyang's heart couldn't be compared to Luo Feiyun's. Luo Tianyang even wondered why Luo Feiheng didn't have such a powerful talent and not Luo Feiyun. Luo Tianyang's strength and talent weren't good enough, so he hoped that his son would become a dragon. Therefore, he used all his strength on Luo Feiyun. Unfortunately, Luo Feiyun wasn't good compared to the experts of the small sects or rogue cultivators. However, Luo Feiyun wasn't on the same level as the young geniuses of the big sections. Even so, Luo Tianyang still spoiled Luo Feiyun. Therefore, when Luo Feiheng crippled Luo Feiheng, Luo Tianyang lost his mind in anger and severely injured Luo Feiheng. However, he regretted it afterwards. When Luo Jianyan and the other elders of the Luo clan were preparing to punish Luo Feiheng, Luo Tianyang spoke a few words to help him. Otherwise, Luo Feiheng wouldn't be sitting here leisurely eating sunflower seeds and reading romantic novels. Luo Feiheng walked out without saying a word. This surprised Luo Tianyang. The people of the Luo clan didn't allow Chu Xiu and the others to see Luo Feiheng because they were afraid that she would cause trouble with her character. However, because of Mo Yezi, the Luo clan let them in. Naturally, they didn't need to lock Luo Feiheng anymore. However, Luo Tianyang and the others were also prepared for Luo Feiheng to cause trouble. Who would have thought that Luo Feiheng would be so quiet this time? This made Luo Tianyang a little uncomfortable. Could it be that his daughter has already accepted her fate? Luo Tianyang chased after Luo Feiheng and tried to persuade her, "Daughter, it's not that I'm cruel, but you've gone too far this time. No matter what, Feiyun is still your brother. How could you do this to him?" Luo Feiheng glanced at him and said in an emotionless voice, "He wants to sell me to the Ying clan of Shang River. Isn't this too much?" Luo Tianyang frowned. How can a marriage between two clans be sold? Moreover, it's not like you don't know who Ying Bailu is. He's ranked 5th on the Longhu list and the successor of the Ying clan of Shang River. He's destined to become a giant in the future. Do you know how many women in the world want to marry Ying Bailu? Now that you have this opportunity, you don't cherish it. You don't know that even this opportunity was begged by the Luo clan. Luo Feiheng looked at Luo Tianyang coldly and said, "What if I say that I'll be stronger than Ying Bailu in the future?" Luo Tianyang smiled and didn't say anything. What kind of existence was a giant in the Jianghu? Only those who could create chaos in the Jianghu could be called a giant in the Jianghu. Even among the 9 great clans, there were only a few who could be called a giant in the Jianghu. The patriarch of the Luo clan didn't count, nor did the patriarch of the Mo clan. The patriarch of the Xiahou clan could barely be considered one, but the patriarch of the Ying clan of Shang River was a true giant in the Jianghu. Based on the talent and potential that Ying Bailu had displayed, he was stronger than the previous patriarchs of the Ying clan of Shang River. His future achievements were almost predictable. Now that Luo Feiheng said these words, even a man would be dreaming, let alone a woman. Chu Xiu didn't say anything because he knew how great Luo Feiheng's future achievements would be. For the Luo clan to give up on a giant in the Jianghu for the support of a giant in the Jianghu was enough to make the people of the Jianghu laugh about it for decades. Of course, for the Luo clan, they thought that they had made a wise decision. When they arrived at the courtyard of the Luo clan, there were already thousands of martial artists sitting in the courtyard. Some of them were martial artists from various forces, and some were young talents with some fame in the Jianghu. Of course, most of them were martial artists who came to watch the show. However, these people didn't even have a seat, so they could only watch the show from the edge of the courtyard or outside. When they saw Luo Feiheng come out, there was a commotion among these people. In fact, in all fairness, Luo Feiheng could be considered a stunning beauty in the Jianghu. If she were to change into a woman's clothes and dress up a little, she would look like a beautiful woman sitting there. She wouldn't be inferior to Yan Fian, who was one of the 4 great beauties of the Jianghu. It was a pity that once she opened her mouth, coupled with her personality, she would directly destroy the mood and lose a lot of points. For people like Mo Tianlin, he had known Luo Feiheng for a long time and didn't see her as a woman at all. Of course, in the eyes of those who didn't have much contact with Luo Feiheng, this young lady of the Luo clan was quite good. She had both looks and strength. She was really a good match for Ying Bailu of the Ying clan of Shangshui. After taking their seats, Luo Feiheng naturally sat with the people of the Luo clan, while Chu Xiu and the others sat below. Mo Tianlin looked around and said strangely, "The people of the Ying clan of Shangshui are not here yet?" Xia Xiaolu said lightly, "Big shots are usually the last to appear. Wouldn't it be shameful to come first? Besides, this time, the Luo clan is in a hurry to unite with the Ying clan through marriage, and there's no definite news yet. Of course, the Ying clan won't be so proactive." However, at this time, the old ancestor of the Luo clan, Luo Jianyan, suddenly went out to welcome some people. This made everyone feel a little strange. Which big shot is it this time? Although the Luo clan had declined, Luo Jianyan was a genuine martial arts grandmaster. Those who could make him go out to welcome them in person were certainly not ordinary people. There were more than 10 people who were personally welcomed by Luo Jianyan. Among them, the two leading people were very conspicuous. One of them was a handsome and masculine young man in a white luxurious robe. He wore a jade crown on his head and held a folding fan in his hand. Beside him was an old eunuch in a purple robe. The old eunuch's cultivation base was at the unity of heaven and man level. Chu Xiu asked Mo Tianlin, "Who are they? Are they from the Eastern Qi imperial family?" Mo Tianlin said in a low voice, "They are people from the Eastern Qi Crown Prince Lv Longji. That young man is Li Yuan, the only son of the Eastern Qi's Lin Duke Li Rang. The Lin Duke has always supported the Crown Prince, so Li Yuan has been with the Crown Prince since he was a child. He can be considered as the Crown Prince's confidant. And that old eunuch is Lv Longji's personal eunuch, Chen Do. He is also his confidant. Lv Longji is giving face to the Luo clan by sending two of his confidants here." Hearing Mo Tianlin's introduction of the two people, Chu Xiu's eyes showed a hint of surprise. Between the two people, Chu Xiu had never heard of the old eunuch, but Li Yuan would become a big shot in the Eastern Qi imperial court in the future. He was the Heavenly King Li Yuan. This person used to be the Northern General of Eastern Qi, and later was conferred the title of Northern King. His status was even higher than his father's. In the later years, when the Eastern Qi's national power declined and was counterattacked by the Northern Yan, it was Li Yuan who presided over the northern lands of Eastern Qi and resisted the Northern Yan. He was definitely one of the top officials in Eastern Qi. But that was more than 20 years later. At this time, Li Yuan was only Lv Longji's confidant. He had an idle position in the Eastern Qi imperial court. It was just an ordinary small official, so it seemed very ordinary. Moreover, the background of Li Yuan's rise was also very interesting. He was originally a member of the imperial court, but when he was traveling in Jianghu, he was suddenly chosen by an eminent monk from the western regions. The monk insisted that he was his destined successor, and before he died, he passed his cultivation to Li Yuan, causing Li Yuan to soar. From a seemingly inconspicuous noble of Eastern Qi, he later became an important minister of Eastern Qi, the Northern King, and the Great General. Chapter 439. Heavenly King Li Yuan, whose name would shake the world after more than 20 years, seemed very ordinary at this time. However, his strength was not weak at this time. He also had the cultivation of 5 qis collecting in origin. But he was slightly older, looking like he was in his 30s. His father, Duke Lin, was a hereditary duke. In fact, in his generation, the family had actually declined. Li Yuan's ancestors were martial arts grandmasters, but his father had only cultivated to the oneness of heaven and man state at this age. Li Yuan, on the other hand, had already shown good talent at a young age. However, even if Duke Lin's mansion tried their best, they could not let Li Yuan stand shoulder to shoulder with the outstanding talents on the Longhu list. The so-called Duke's public house sounded very famous, but in reality, after declining for so long, its foundation was not even comparable to a small faction. Therefore, the Duke of Lingguo allowed Li Yuan to join the Crown Prince, Lv Longji, and was prepared to use the merit of helping the Duke of Lingguo's public house regain its glory. Mo Tianlin did not know that Chu Xiu was thinking so much at this moment. He just sneered and said, "The Luo family is really desperate. What do they mean by inviting people from the imperial court? Is the Luo family going to rely on the imperial court or what? Don't they know that this is a taboo in Jianghu?" Chu Xiu said lightly, "The boundary between Jianghu and the imperial court is not so clear. As long as there are benefits and benefits, why can't they join forces? Don't forget that Northern Yan had to join forces with Northern Yan Jianghu to defeat Eastern Qi. Besides, now the Eastern Qi imperial court also knows the benefits of joining forces with people from Jianghu. White Tiger Hall, one of the 4 spirits, has now joined forces with Eastern Qi imperial court. Don't you know? Mo Tianlin nodded. Of course, he knew this, but as a man of Jianghu, he still had some rejection of the imperial court. The Luo family was only holding a martial arts competition to find a spouse. Coupled with the Luo family's current strength, Crown Prince LV Longji naturally did not have to come in person. However, he had sent his trusted aide and personal eunuchs. This was already enough. At this time, Luo Tianyang personally led Li Yuan and Chen Do to the seats of honor. Li Yuan smiled and said, "The Luo family's patriarch's daughter is famous. This martial contest for a spouse has attracted many young talents. Speaking of which, I don't seem to be very old. I wonder if I can participate?" Hearing this, Luo Tianyang revealed an awkward expression. If LV Longji said this, Luo Tianyang would definitely agree. Who cares about the imperial court or the pugilistic world? Being able to become the crown prince's wife was something that the Luo family could not ask for more. However, the problem was that these words were spoken by Li Yuan. He was only a trusted aide of the crown prince, and his position was incomparable. Moreover, the Duke of Lin's public house had already declined. Although it had the title of a duke, it could only be ranked in the middle among all the dukes and marquises in Eastern Qi. When Li Yuan saw Luo Tianyang's expression, he knew what he was thinking. This caused Li Yuan to sneer inwardly, but he said indifferently, "Patriarch Luo, please don't mind me. I was just joking." Hearing this, Luo Tianyang also laughed and chatted with them for a while before leaving. In fact, from this point, it could be seen that Luo Tianyang was indeed not very good as a patriarch, whether it was in terms of strength or ability. Just now, when Li Yuan said that, regardless of whether he was joking or not, Luo Tianyang just had to pretend to flatter him and fool him, and it would be over. In the end, Luo Tianyang acted as if he looked down on Li Yuan, but because of the latter's status, he could not say much. This completely offended Li Yuan. After Luo Tianyang left, Li Yuan's expression was already somewhat gloomy. Chen Do, who was beside him, smiled and said in a slightly sharp voice, "Why? You feel uncomfortable being looked down upon?" Li Yuan sneered and said, "No wonder the Luo family has declined to such a state. With such an idiotic patriarch, how can the Luo family have a good future?" Chen Do waved his hand and said, "Young man, don't be so hot-tempered. An expert once said that as the saying goes, the river flows east for 30 years and then west for 30 years. Don't bully the young for being poor. Now that you are with His Highness the Crown Prince, your future is boundless. Don't think that Luo Tianyang looks down on your status now. Who knows, he might have to bow to you in the future. When the Crown Prince ascends to the throne, he will directly assign you to the military. At the very least, you will be a general or a general. At that time, it will just be a mere Luo family. Not to mention Luo Tianyang, you probably won't even have to worry about the Luo family's patriarch." When Li Yuan heard this, he cupped his hands towards Chen Do and said, "Thank you for your guidance, Eunuch Chen." "Don't worry, Eunuch Chen. Since I've already joined His Highness the Crown Prince, then I will naturally go through fire and water for His Highness the Crown Prince. Only when His Highness the Crown Prince ascends to the throne in the future will there be a day for us to make a name for ourselves." Hearing Li Yuan's words, Chen Do nodded in satisfaction. Li Yuan was one of the more promising young confidants that His Highness the Crown Prince had recruited. Although his current strength could not be compared to the young talents on the Longhu list, Li Yuan was bold and meticulous in his work. He was reliable, so he had gained His Highness the Crown Prince's favor. Just then, Chen Do inadvertently looked in Chu Xiu's direction and let out a soft cry of surprise. Li Yuan asked in surprise, "Eunuch Chen, what's wrong?" Chen Do laughed coldly and said, "Nothing much. I just met a fellow that His Highness the Crown Prince often talks about. That fellow has caused His Highness the Crown Prince a lot of trouble. Li Yuan asked doubtfully, who is it that actually dares to go against His Highness the Crown Prince? Chen Do pointed at Chu Xiu and said, it's that fellow, ranked 6th on the Longhu list, Chu Xiu from the Guanzhong torture room. Originally, His Highness the Crown Prince and Prince Anil Jiang Wen Yuan were working well together. It was this fellow who leaked the news to the second prince, who then reported the matter to His Majesty. Not only did it lead to the destruction of the Prince Anil residence, but His Majesty also gave His Highness a good scolding, causing His Highness's prestige to plummet. Li Yuan asked doubtfully, this fellow has gone overboard. Did His Highness the Crown Prince not take any action? Chen Do snorted coldly and said, the previous incident at the Prince Anil residence caused His Highness the Crown Prince to lose a lot of points in His Majesty's eyes. Of course he wouldn't dare to do anything. Moreover, this Chu Xiu is from the Guanzhong torture room. This is a little tricky. You also know that the Guanzhong torture room is not considered a power of our Eastern Qi, but in certain areas, they have worked with our Eastern Qi quite a bit. Moreover, this Chu Xiu is also one of the higher-ups of the Guanzhong torture room. If His Highness makes a move against him in Eastern Qi and His Majesty finds out, he will definitely be heavily punished. A lack of forbearance in small matters will spoil great plans. This kind of insignificant person can be taught a lesson at any time. There is no need to rush. Moreover, with His Highness's magnanimity, who knows, he might forget about this matter after some time. Li Yuan looked at Chu Xiu and narrowed his eyes, saying, don't worry, Eunuch Chen. If there is a chance, I will help His Highness vent his anger. At this moment, Chu Xiu also felt that someone was looking at him. He turned his head and just happened to meet Li Yuanli's gaze. He could feel the meaning behind that gaze. Unexpectedly, neither of them was willing to give in to the other. In terms of aura, Li Yuanli was actually able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Chu Xiu, not cowering in the slightest. Sensing the malice in Li Yuan's gaze, Chu Xiu could guess the other party's reason. After all, in the previous incident with Qiu Xinsheng at the Pegasus farm, he had stood on the second prince's side and caused the crown prince a lot of trouble. Now, it would be strange if the crown prince, LV Longji's people, still treated him well. However, this Li Yuan did indeed have the potential to become a big shot in the future. At the very least, he dared to compete with Chu Xiu in terms of aura and was not at a disadvantage at all. In fact, although Li Yuan was the crown prince's man, his strength and status were not as good as Chu Xiu's. Stepping into the 5 Qis gathering in the Origin realm at the age of 30 was considered outstanding among the warriors of the same level. But looking at the top 10 of the Longhu list, there were almost no more than 30 people who had reached this realm. In terms of reputation in Jianghu, Chu Xiu was also more famous than him. At this time, Chu Xiu was the torture officer of the Guanzhong torture room, while Li Yuan was only a low-ranking official in the Eastern Qi imperial court. If not for his identity as the crown prince, LV Longji's confidant, he was not even worth mentioning. Under the premise that he was inferior to Chu Xiu in all aspects, he was still able to make his aura not lose to Chu Xiu's, which was quite rare. After the two sides looked at each other, they withdrew their gazes. At this moment, the great ancestor of the Luo family and Luo Tianyang both went out to welcome them. To be able to put on such a show, it was naturally the Shangshuaying family, the head of the 9 major families. Everyone looked at the gate. Luo Tianyang and the great ancestor of the Luo family led the way. From outside, 3 people walked in, but everyone present subconsciously looked at the person in the middle. The person in the middle was an extremely handsome young man. The proportions of his facial features seemed to be carved out of jade, perfect and flawless. Even the faint smile that always hung on his face had never changed. There was not even the slightest fluctuation in it. He was wearing a long black robe with white cloud patterns embroidered on it. As he walked, the white cloud patterns actually reacted with the surrounding power of heaven and earth, rippling like water. It was extremely miraculous. Clearly, his robe was not an ordinary item. This person was the unparalleled young master Ing Bailu, who was famous in Jianghu. He was proficient in astrology, military strategy, and secret martial arts. There were many people in Jianghu who were proficient in these things, and there were also many who could surpass Ing Bailu in a certain aspect. However, no one could be proficient in so many things at the same time. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was unparalleled in the world. Behind Ing Bailu was a young man who looked slightly younger than Ing Bailu. Although he was also handsome, he was not as handsome as Ing Bailu. Moreover, there was a layer of gloominess on his face, which formed a sharp contrast with Ing Bailu, who always wore a smile. Behind the two of them was an old man who deliberately took a step back from them. His subconscious hunch made it obvious that this old man was most likely a servant. However, the problem was that this old man who looked like a servant exuded an extremely powerful aura that was not inferior to Luo Junyan's. This old man was a martial Dao grandmaster. Chapter 440. With Xianxia in clan strength, they definitely had no lack of martial Dao grandmasters. They even had true fire spirit refinement realm experts. But what was really strange was that someone actually used a martial Dao grandmaster as a servant. This was no longer shocking, it was horrifying. The strong had the dignity of the strong. No matter how weak a martial Dao grandmaster was, he was still a martial Dao grandmaster. No one could understand why a martial Dao grandmaster would be willing to be a servant, and why the Xianxia Ing clan dared to use him. But at this moment, everyone could see that the Luo clan's old ancestor was obviously embarrassed. Although the 9 great clans were on the same level in the pugilistic world, the gap between them was huge. Someone like the Luo clan's old ancestor could only be a servant in Xianxia Ing clan. How embarrassing was that? Ing Bailu seemed to have noticed Luo Junyan's embarrassment. He smiled and said, "Senior Luo, we're all from the 9 great clans. There's no need to be so polite. Just do what you have to do." Luo Junyan hurriedly said, "In that case, young Master Ing, please take a seat. The joust for a spouse will begin now. Young Master Ing, you're strong enough to be the ring master." The Luo clan's so-called joust for a spouse was actually just a show. Under normal circumstances, the Luo clan would either let their daughter be the ring master, and whoever could defeat Luo Feiheng would marry that person. But considering Luo Feiheng's strength and her current state, they decided to forget about it. Not to mention that there were not many men in the pugilistic world who could defeat Luo Feiheng. Even if there were, with Luo Feiheng's current state, Luo Feiheng would definitely kill the person in the ring. At that time, forget about the joust for a spouse, it would directly turn into a murder case. Therefore, the Luo clan's strategy was to let the participants of the joust for a spouse compete in the ring and choose the ring master. The final winner would then be able to marry Luo Feiheng. Of course, now that Ing Bailu was here, this joust for a spouse was just for show. Otherwise, who could possibly defeat Ing Bailu? But right at this moment, Ing Bailu suddenly said, "I won't be ascending the arena this time. Even though my younger brother, Ing Baihu, rarely steps foot into the world, his strength is sufficient for him to ascend the arena and compete with these young geniuses of the world." As soon as Ing Bailu's words left his mouth, everyone present was stunned. Practically everyone in the pugilistic world knew that the Luo clan's goal this time was to form a marriage alliance with Ing Bailu of the Ing clan. Yet now, it was Ing Bailu's younger brother, Ing Baihu. What was going on? The disciples of the Ing clan were naturally not trash, and Ing Baihu was the younger brother of Ing Bailu. His identity was even more extraordinary. However, no matter how extraordinary he was, he could not defeat Bailu. This situation left the Luo family members unable to react. Luo Junyan asked in confusion, "Young Master Ing, what do you mean by this? Don't tell me you're not going to personally enter the arena?" Ing Bailu countered with a question of his own, who said that I'm going to fight in person? Previously, it was your Luo clan that wanted to form a marriage alliance with my Ying clan, but did you say that it was necessary? What, could it be that you think that my younger brother is not worthy of your Luo clan, and are looking down on the disciples of my Ying clan? Luo Jianyan was immediately stumped by these words. He didn't know what to say. Could he publicly say that he looked down on Ying Baihu? Wouldn't that be the same as offending the entire Ying clan? But the crux of the problem was that Luo Feiheng's marriage to Ying Bailu and Ying Baihu were two completely different concepts. One was ranked 5th on the Longhu leaderboard, the future successor of the Ying clan, while the other was just an ordinary disciple of the Ying clan. The gap between them was too big. Below the arena, Xia Xiaolu shook his head and said, "The Luo clan is too clever for their own good." In the end, they were tricked by the Ying clan. Chu Xiu also sneered and said, "There's no such thing as taking advantage of others in this pugilistic world." The Luo clan wanted to use a daughter to gain the support and help of the Ying clan. What else can the Ying clan get other than Luo Feiheng? A half-dead Luo clan? Using Ying Baihu to form a marriage alliance with the Luo clan, using an unimportant disciple to become the in-laws of the Luo clan, and even gaining a disciple who had once entered the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard, Luo Feiheng. The Ying clan of Shangshui really didn't lose out on this deal. By the way, do you know anything about that Ying Baihu? How strong is he? How does he compare to Ying Bailu? Mo Tianlin shook his head and said, "With Ying Bailu and the Ying clan, do you think the other disciples of the Ying clan can stand out?" Although Ying Baihu wasn't a nameless figure in the Ying clan of Shang River City, at the very least, he was overshadowed by Ying Bailu. Look at his gloomy expression right now. Clearly, he had a lot of opinions about his elder brother. Also, do you know how Ying Baihu got his name? Ying Bailu was called Bailu because of the auspicious omen of a white deer. However, Ying Baihu was called Ying Baihu not because a white tiger appeared when he was born, but purely because his brother was called Bailu, so he was called Baihu. For someone whose name even came into existence because of his elder brother, it would be strange if he didn't feel a bit of resentment. By the way, now that Ying Baihu is fighting, what should we do about our plan? Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Of course we'll go according to plan. Since Luo Feiheng is confident, we'll just cooperate with her. Regardless of whether it's Ying Baihu or Ying Baihu, there's only one thing we need to do, and that's to stall for time." Mo Tianlin nodded, then suddenly said, "This time, Ying Baihu didn't go up himself, but let his younger brother go up instead. I feel that it's not only because the Ying clan wants to cheat the Luo clan, but also because Ying Baihu himself doesn't want to marry Feiheng. I once heard that Ying Baihu is interested in the Cloud Sword Fairy, Yan Fian, who came to the Yunu Palace, but everyone knows the rules of the Yunu Palace, so Yan Fian can only politely decline Ying Baihu's confession, but Ying Baihu is still infatuated with her. But this is just a rumor, especially those women, so I don't know if it's true or not." Xia Xiaolu couldn't help but say, "I say, Mo Tianlin, you still have the mood to study these rumors?" Mo Tianlin retorted, "What do you mean by rumors? Know yourself, know your opponent, and you'll never be defeated. If we're going to fight Ying Baihu later, we'll have a better chance of winning if we know more, right?" Xia Xiaolu curled his lips. He didn't think that these rumors would be of any help. While Xia Xiaolu was bickering with Mo Tianlin, Luo Jianyan had already made his decision. He forced a smile and said, "Since young Master Ying has said so, then the joust for a spouse will begin." For the entire Luo family, the first problem was who they should marry, not who they should marry. From Ying Baihu to Ying Baihu, although the difference was huge, for the Luo clan, it was still a marriage alliance with the Ying clan, and the other party was a direct descendant of the Ying clan. The Luo clan couldn't say that they wouldn't get any benefits, so Luo Jianyan could only nod and agree. After Luo Jianyan left, Ying Baihu turned to Ying Baihu and said, "Are you satisfied with the marriage I've arranged for you? Although the Wu region Luo clan is disappointing, Luo Feiheng is really not bad. It's a pity that the Luo clan was blind, buying the casket and returning the pearls. But it just so happens that I'll give this pearl to you. It's worthy of your status and the glory of the Ying clan. A cold smile appeared on Ying Baihu's face, causing his originally gloomy expression to darken even further. Ever since I was young, the clan has always prioritized you. Whatever you don't want, they give it to me. Yet, you still have to pretend to be a good elder brother. Is there any meaning to it? I can see that the Luo clan looks down on me. You were the one they wanted to marry before, but you didn't want it, so they gave it to me. Even the marriage is like this. If you're really a good brother, why didn't you give Luo Feiheng to me? Why didn't you give Yan Fian to me as well? Slap. A loud slap rang out, but Ying Baihu didn't even move. Perhaps only the old servant from the Shangshui clan could see Ying Baihu's movements, but he acted as if he didn't see anything. Ying Baihu covered his face, his eyes filled with hatred as he looked at Ying Baihu, but he didn't dare to say another word. Ying Baihu still had that unchanging smile on his face, and said in a gentle tone, "The things I've given you since you were young weren't charity, they were gifts, because you're my younger brother. But it's also because you're my younger brother that you should know that there are some things you shouldn't think about, and can't think about. Otherwise, as your older brother, I'll get angry. This slap is a lesson. Remember not to anger me in the future. I've already reported the marriage with the Luo clan to my father, and he's agreed. Now that the arena is in front of you, it's up to you whether you want to go or not." Ying Baihu covered his face, and said coldly, "Go. Why not? Sooner or later, you'll regret it." He wasn't Ying Baihu, who had the right to choose any woman he liked. He didn't even need to consider marriage, and it was all up to his mood. Even if Ying Baihu wanted to marry an ordinary person, the Ying clan wouldn't interfere. But Ying Baihu was different. Since he couldn't obtain the Ying clan's power, he could borrow some of the Luo clan's power after marrying Luo Feiheng. Ying Baihu didn't care about these things, but he, Ying Baihu, would use these powers to take back what belonged to him sooner or later. Using his inner force to erase the palm print on his face, Ying Baihu took a step forward and stepped onto the arena. His 5 Chi's unification stage strength was on full display, and it immediately shocked everyone present. Ying Baihu didn't look very old, but he had also reached the 5 Chi's unification stage. Right now, Ying Baihu hadn't officially roamed the pugilistic world, but as long as his attainments in martial Dao were half as good as his older brother's, he wouldn't be able to escape the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard. Having 2 people on the Longhu leaderboard was a terrifying achievement. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.